I mean, a gimp? Come on.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by Cinemasins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from Cinemasins, joined as always by the voice of Cinemasins, Jeremy Scott.
What's up?
And from Music Video Sins, Barrett Share.
Hello, everyone.
And we are going to complete our march into May Madness.
Let the games begin!
This is madness. It's madness, I tell you, for the love of God!
One shining moment, it's all on the line.
Battle Royale!
The crowd is just on its feet here. He's a Cinderella boy.
You're excited! Feel these nipples!
Today, we've got our final four. We're going to have our championship, and then we're going to have a winner. We're going to crown a movie that is absolutely the best, hands down, no arguments after that.
Right, except for 10 years from now when we do it again.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
If we're still able to do this podcast that long.
That's correct. That's correct. We will go over how we got here, though. And
well, how did I get here?
Yes.
Previously on the bracket.
That's right. Previously on the bracket. Reading. So here's how we got here. In the North region, we started off with our play-in game, Rushmore versus Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and we picked Rushmore.
Mm-hmm.
Jaws then played Rushmore, and Jaws beat Rushmore.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had La La Land versus Fargo, and Fargo took that. Goodfellas versus Shawshank Redemption, which I consider still, to this day, a first-round championship round.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, I hated letting go of Goodfellas that early, but Shawshank took it. And then LA Confidential against Sideways. We picked Sideways. They picked Sideways. I picked LA Confidential. But Sideways moved on. Aliens versus Gone Baby Gone. We picked Gone Baby Gone. Then it was Silence of the Lambs versus Finding Nemo. We picked Silence of the Lambs. E.T. versus Amelie. Another kind of a shocker there. We picked Amelie there, although I still think that's a good pick, though. I don't have.
I stand by that pick.
I don't have any remorse about that.
I don't like the fact that Aliens went out so early.
Yep.
We just watched that recently. Man, that's a good movie.
It's a good one.
That is such a good movie.
Yep. And then the final one in that bracket was Die Hard versus Star Wars: A New Hope. Another championship kind of bout there in the first round, and we said Die Hard took it. Much to the chagrin of all the Star Wars fans out there. Then we had Jaws versus Fargo. Jaws took that. Shawshank versus Sideways. Shawshank took that. Gone Baby Gone versus Silence of the Lambs. Silence of the Lambs took that. Amelie and Die Hard. Die Hard took that.
I was surprised that Gone Baby Gone didn't last longer than it did.
Yeah, I actually saw someone on Twitter today that said he just watched Gone Baby Gone and he doesn't know what to do with his life. He's like, you undersold it somehow.
That's hilarious.
Then we had Jaws versus the Shawshank. This started really getting hard.
Yeah.
Jaws versus the Shawshank Redemption, and much to Jeremy's chagrin, we picked Jaws. Silence of the Lambs versus Die Hard, and Die Hard took it. And to get to our final four entrant here, Jaws versus Die Hard, we took out Jaws.
Man,
with Die Hard.
I do not agree with that.
Yeah.
Too late, no backsies.
That's right. It's just that's just an impossible choice.
Yep.
I could pick either one at any time.
What's fascinating to me is how much of this came down to the matchups. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah. Oh,
you
yeah.
look at the bracket at the start, I think it's pretty easy to go, well, these are probably the four best movies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not about that. It's about who they meet along the way.
Yeah.
And that's why we ended up losing Goodfellas and then Shawshank, and either one of those could have been a Final Four movie.
Yep.
Anyway, continue.
Then we went onto the East region. We had our play-in game of Field of Dreams versus One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I believe One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest won that,
It did indeed.
And it played Children of Men. Children of Men took that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had this is the most I think this is the most controversial in this room. The Dark Knight versus Rocky. Rocky took it.
Yeah. So sad about that.
That was one that I was probably like while I was talking went back and forth between the answer that I was going to give, and finally just said, "All right, I have more good things to say about Rocky in the end."
And then Jeremy quoted The Dark Knight, Morgan Freeman saying, "This is wrong."
Then we had the right sturf. The right sturf.
The right sturf.
The right sturf.
That's how the Swedes say it.
Yes. We had The Right Stuff versus Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Eternal Sunshine took that. A Few Good Men versus Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing won there. There Will Be Blood and Lost in Translation. There Will Be Blood took that. Almost Famous versus No Country for Old Men. No Country for Old Men victorious there. Up in the Air and Animal House. Up in the Air moved on.
Buzzsaw.
Much to the chagrin of our friend Mike, who said Animal House was way better than Up in the Air.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
He doesn't. He really doesn't. Poor Mike. He's got 2 kids. And then City of God versus The Sixth Sense, which is another big, huge, slam bang first round.
Mm-hmm.
City of God advanced.
Well, man, talk about a championship matchup. Do the Right Thing versus A Few Good Men was painful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because that's a rough film for A Few Good Men to go up against.
It is. Few Good Men could easily have made it into the Elite 8 if it had a different path.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it would have gone up against what would it have gone? It would have gone up against There'll Be Blood.
No, it would have been
Eternal Sunshine. So that would have been a tough one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Children of Men then vanquished Rocky, knocked it out,
Mm-hmm.
and then Eternal Sunshine went on to beat Do the Right Thing. There Will Be Blood against No Country for Old Men was one we had done earlier when we did our 2007 year, and nobody changed their mind on that. There Will Be Blood took that, and then City of God beat Up in the Air. Then it was Children of Men versus Eternal Sunshine. Children of Men advanced.
Mm-hmm.
There Will Be Blood versus City of God, and City of God advanced. And then the hardest one for me out of the entire matchup so far, Children of Men versus City of God. Children of Men took it.
Could have been either one.
It was unanimous, it was a really, that was one I was sitting there just kind of going, oh man, really?
I really want to vote City of Men.
Can't this be can't this be the championship? All right. So then in the South region, we had our play-in game of The Departed versus Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Close Encounters took that.
Surprising, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think The Departed probably has more dynamic action and dialogue and everything, but Close Encounters just puts you in that mood.
Yeah.
It's just so well done. So that meant it was a Spielberg versus Spielberg matchup in the South region. Schindler's List against Close Encounters. Schindler's List took that. Then we had Raiders of the Lost Ark versus Gravity. Gravity won.
There was somebody on SoundCloud from last episode that is still asking about Gravity. They're like, what am I missing with Gravity? I've watched it twice, and I still don't understand why
please
people...
stop watching it if you're not getting it at that point, because I don't want you to waste your time. Because some movies just aren't going to hit you.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's great, clearly.
Yeah, well, it seems like it's populist enough to where, it'd be difficult not to enjoy.
I think it's great, too. I just wanted Raiders to win.
Yes.
Then The Untouchables versus The Prestige. The Untouchables had a sort of a charmed life.
Yes,
going
it
through
did.
Here. And I love The Prestige, but, we kept talking about The Untouchables and how well made it is and how out of the park Brian De Palma sort of, hits that, that movie. And it's just crazy great.
Christopher Nolan got fucked in this first round.
He did.
He did. Poor guy.
Then we had The Social Network versus American Beauty, and we talked before how American Beauty didn't really match up very well with a lot of things, even though it's a great movie and we all love it in here. But The Social Network advanced there. Out of Sight versus Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park took it. Alien versus The Shining, which was another really tough one. Alien advanced there.
That was rough on me.
Oh, yeah. It was, that's just like Jeremy was saying. It's your top 2 horror movies of all time really going there. I think it's close to mine. Halloween's my favorite horror movie, but that's got to be right there in the top 5 for me.
And it's the only Kubrick entry that we had, too.
Yep. Yeah, because the only other movie he made, the other 2 movies he made while we were alive were Barry Lyndon, and which had no chance in hell, and Full Metal Jacket and Eyes Wide Shut. 3 movies.
Eyes Wide Shut wasn't going to make it into this. As much as I love it, it's not going to make it into this.
So he only made 3 other movies in the time that we've been alive and everything. And then, unfortunately, he died just before Eyes Wide Shut, so we didn't get to see what his AI would have been and course, AI would have probably been, its release date would have been like this summer. Or so Alien went on to beat The Shining. Then we had Annie Hall versus When Harry Met Sally. Annie Hall went ahead on that one. And then Pulp Fiction versus Stand By Me. Pulp Fiction advanced. Schindler's List versus Gravity then. Schindler's List advanced there. The Untouchables versus The Social Network. The Untouchables once again, went past another. It had an easier go of it. Like it's almost like we're saying The Untouchables is a bad movie or something, but it's not.
It goes
it's
up
a
against
great movie.
Yeah.
It's just going up against movies it matches up well against.
Yeah. I would like to have seen Shawshank have Untouchables road to the final four.
Yeah. Then Jurassic Park versus Alien. We took Jurassic Park on that one. I can't remember. Did I pick Alien on that?
I think you did.
I think you did. Yeah, it was me and Jeremy.
Yeah, because I was
I
was sitting there going, man, Alien. I feel like it's a better movie still, but I didn't have any problem with Jurassic Park. Annie Hall.
Only one of those movies has Sigourney Weaver in her underwear.
That's correct. That's correct. Annie Hall versus Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction got past there, and then we had our in our Sweet 16 Schindler's List versus The Untouchables. That was the end of The Untouchables. And then Jurassic Park versus Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction advanced there. And then maybe a little bit of surprise to some people, Pulp Fiction beat Schindler's List. It is in the final four.
It is.
It is.
So then in our final region, or the West region, Back to the Future. No, I said, okay, so we had the Two Towers versus All the President's Men in the play-in game. The Two Towers advanced. It played against Back to the Future, and Back to the Future won that. Amadeus versus Whiplash. Whiplash beat Amadeus. That was a big one.
Yep. It whipped it.
It did. It whipped it and lashed it. The Incredibles versus Monty Python and the Holy Grail. We took the Incredibles there. Empire Strikes Back versus Boogie Nights. We took Empire Strikes Back. Ex Machina versus The Descendants. We went with Ex Machina. The Usual Suspects versus Seven. That was another matchup we had done basically in 1995. Nobody changed their mind, so it was Usual Suspects. If there was anybody that changed their mind, it would have been me. But whatever, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Usual Suspects advanced. Zero Dark 30 versus Brokeback Mountain. We took Brokeback Mountain there.
Yep.
That was a really tough matchup.
It is.
And then the Matrix versus Fantastic Mr. Fox. The Matrix moved on.
Yeah, that was probably one of the easier ones that we had.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, Fantastic Mr. Fox is magical,
Yeah.
but it just doesn't have the substance.
No.
That's right. Back to the Future then went up against Whiplash. Back to the Future won that. The Incredibles versus Empire Strikes Back. Empire Strikes Back continued on that one. And yeah, I mean, it's another one that I feel like it may have, sort of took a little, I mean, we love Empire Strikes Back in here, but I don't think I expected it to make it that far.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, when you size it up, and I love how this turned out, starting in the second round, going into Sweet 16, where we're at now, to where like we've got a good mix of nostalgia and newer stuff, and then like new classics too from like the mid-aughts and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Then Ex Machina took on The Usual Suspects, which was a really tough one, but Ex Machina was the winner there.
Yeah.
Brokeback Mountain versus The Matrix. Matrix took that. And then we had Back to the Future versus Empire Strikes Back. Back to the Future won. Ex Machina versus The Matrix, and The Matrix moved on. And then the moment of truth.
That was the money shot.
That's right. Back to the Future versus The Matrix, the movie that I've always said is my favorite movie of all time. Back to the Future. I chose The Matrix and swung the vote.
Boom.
And The Matrix is in the final four.
And earned my
That
respect.
goes to show how objective I am,
That's
ladies
right.
and gentlemen.
I believe it does.
So our final four is Die Hard versus Children of Men and Pulp Fiction versus The Matrix. And we're going to have some fun today.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. Somebody's going to have some fun.
Yeah.
It may not be all of us. May not even be us at all.
I did. I was a man of my word, and I watched all these movies.
Yep, I did too.
So we're all men of our word.
Nice.
We've watched.
Yes,
yeah,
and master of our domain.
That's
Yes, we are.
right. That's right. We watched all four of these movies. I've seen all four of them in at least the last 2 weeks. And so Die Hard versus Children of Men, which I think might be the toughest one out of this two matchups.
That's
here.
interesting. I think the other one's tougher.
The other one, yeah, you're right. The other one might be tough.
They're both big contenders.
Yeah.
They are.
So did we get any new revelations watching these two movies? Die Hard.
I got one.
Yep.
The last time that we were talking about this, because as we've progressed through this, we talked about like how the effects have stood up or how if a movie seems dated and that kind of thing. And we mentioned that Die Hard generally is not dated.
Mm-hmm.
And I brought up there's a couple of effect shots that look maybe, not so good. And one of the examples I said was Hans Gruber falling to his death.
Yeah, which
I totally disagree with myself.
Well, it was funny. You said that sort of as an aside, and I didn't want to break into the conversation and say, "Whoa, that's actually really good effects."
Yeah.
Especially for back in the day, and even for today,
It is. And as I went back and rewatched it, that shot is perfect.
it's amazing, right?
It's this slow motion, this realization he's got the gun, and it's seamless. He falls, and just this wonderful realization on Alan Rickman's face, and then it cuts to the body all the way down until he hits, and everyone's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
that's gotta suck."
Now, here's one thing that stood out to me on my rewatching of Die Hard.
Mhm.
It's easy for my brain to think that's where the movie ends.
Oh,
But
yeah,
it's
yeah.
not.
Oh, yeah.
Because this movie has a little bit of a cheesy ending
Mm-hmm.
when one of the baddies comes up out of the rubble
Yep.
with a gun, and we get to give Reginald, whatever his name is, closure, and he finally shoots his gun again
And
to
how
save the day.
fuck did Carl get away from that thing he was hanging
Exactly.
from?
Yeah.
How the
Exactly.
fuck? He was
Yep.
he was basically hanged.
Yeah.
And it was chains. It's
Yeah.
not like rope or anything. He was he's way up high.
Yeah.
Well, I think they took him down because he was in it wasn't a body bag, but he was covered, wasn't he? He was on a stretcher. So
I
they
guess
took him
he
down,
was.
but he had the wherewithal
But
not
he should
only
have been-
to rise from
Okay,
the
so
dead.
if he's coming out on the stretcher, I never really thought about that. I always thought that he just came out of nowhere or something. I guess he does have the sheet coming off of him
yeah,
or
but
whatever.
it is out of
But
nowhere.
he
though.
should have. I think he should have died from
Yes.
from that.
And it just stood out to me as a pretty unnecessary tacked on ending. I think you could have had Hans fall and cut right to Bruce Willis meeting, the cop and having a hug or whatever, and then done that stretchy, thing they do at the end of the Die Hard movies when the credits roll and we pan back.
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
gets taller than it should be. I think that would have been a fine ending, and it ends up being a little cheesy.
Yeah.
Not that I think it takes anything away from Die Hard's greatness, but that stood out to me almost more than anything on this viewing.
So yeah, when I was watching Die Hard again, and this is probably at least the 30th time I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
I loved how a lot of things that were just put in place came, it's a really well plotted action movie.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very early on, Ellis is talking about the Rolex that he got Bonnie Bedelia or whatever.
Mhm.
And later on, that becomes a big thing. I'll show it to you later or whatever. And then it becomes a major thing towards the end. Just a lot of little things like that. I've always loved the part where, Hans is up near the roof and they're doing that little exchange back and forth. They're pretty sure one is the other.
Yeah.
Well, Hans knows that John McClane, but John McClane's pretty sure that's Hans Gruber. But he's like I'm John McClane. He's like I'm Clay, Bill Clay, and then it shows that thing, and it's not only does it not just say Bill Clay, it says William Clay.
Yeah.
And it's such a great detail in there, and the way it's shot is amazing.
Oh yeah. Kind of at that upward
There's
angle.
a lot
and
of Dutch angles
Yeah.
in it and everything, but it's Jan de Bont was the cinematographer on it, but it's just so well shot and well constructed. Everything about it, the plot of that movie is well constructed.
That the rest of that scene as it continues, where Gruber gets the gun, he's like, "Oh, you're talking in German," which was what I just started talking in. But he starts talking in German, and he looks around, and he's like, Hans. And then he shoots, and he's like, "Oh, no bullets!
Yeah.
What the fuck you think I'm gonna do?"
Yeah.
You think I am fucking stupid?
Well, the other thing is too is the just tremendous use of the widescreen, because there's so many moments where you just see the hint of something in the corner or whatever. I love how Reginald Vell Johnson's character is walking down the hall and of the building, and he's like, forget this.
Yeah.
And you're at first you're like, I think as many times as I saw this movie, I'm like, yeah, typical dumbass cop doesn't want to do, he's late, showing he's lazy. if he goes any farther,
He's
dies.
dead. Yeah, he's dead.
You know?
Yeah, because dude's on the other side of the
Yeah,
wall,
he's
right?
right
Yeah,
there. That's the way the camera just kind of comes back, and you see the guy just waiting there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like there, and just the stuff that scene we were just talking about up on the roof or near the roof, the camera shows that gun just hanging out
Oh, yeah,
by the
yeah.
door and everything. Lots of stuff like that.
Even
in
the
it.
bad guys have pose as the check-in guard is fully in character. Like
He's got like a southern accent.
he's like
Yeah.
talking about the Laker game, and he's like, "I got $50 on them assholes."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like exactly like a regular security guard would. It's just
Yeah.
everybody's so committed to their part. It's why the heist is one of the greatest, in film history, I think.
Yeah. All right. So, any new revelations from Children of Men?
Talk about not a cheesy ending.
Yeah.
That movie ends exactly where it should.
Right. The cheesy ending there would be he gets resuscitated and becomes like a surrogate dad to that child, and we see like 10 years later.
Right.
Kind of, don't you? Like the first time that I watched that, I almost expected that was going to happen because this guy's been impenetrable this whole time. I mean, he's been cheating death this entire thing from that whole escape from the house with the cars and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, the ship is right there. They could probably resuscitate him, but no, it ends perfectly.
Yeah, I really think so. I think it takes guts when you're making a film to end on something that's more real and not that Hollywood ending people expect. And of course, the reason we get a lot of these Hollywood endings is they do test screenings, and the test screenings come back and go, "Oh, he should have lived at the end and gotten together with the girl," because Americans are stupid. But every now and then a filmmaker has the clout to say, "Nope, we're going to end it just like this," and that's one of those. It's the same sort of thing as Blood Diamond, because Leo gets right to the hill where the plane is. And it's only the fact that the soldiers are upon them and will kill all three or both of them, him and Jaimon Honsu. One of them has to go and one of them has to stay behind, and he dies right there on the mountain. And that's the way it should be from a story standpoint, in my opinion. It would have been a cheat to have him live.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any difference as far as action is concerned between these two. Like, both of them are incredibly action packed.
Both very tense.
Both very tense. Of course, Quaron goes on this I think that was just an insane shoot. I mean, I don't know how in the world you tell people we're going to shoot all this stuff. It's going to be one shot. You got one chance to make it right.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, obviously it was probably like 8 or 9 or 10 chances. They probably even practiced it a bunch before they did it. But I still think that's just insane. Just you guys, just imagine you're like, what if you're an extra and you just fuck something up?
You're
fired. It was, I think it was
Somebody's like puking off screen. It's like, oh, sorry, I had too much to drink.
There was
last night.
some story in Saving Private Ryan where Edward Burns fucked up some shot in that movie or whatever, and he's like, man, that shot that I just fucked up is like more expensive than any movie that I've ever made.
That's got to be a crazy feeling for him. You know what I mean? Because he did direct a bunch of really low budget indie films that got mostly good reviews, but that was his first. I mean, that had a huge budget. That's a pretty funny way to look at it.
Yeah.
I do want to, speaking of the one shot thing, I want to make a clarification because we've had a couple of commenters on SoundCloud say that, well, you can't use that technique in something like an Avengers film because this was in a relatively enclosed space in Children of Men and that kind of thing. And the example that these commenters use that we use all the time is the Avengers, where it's cutting back and forth and da 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 da. I don't think we're saying that it should apply to everything.
No.
Right.
But I also reject the argument that you can't use it in a big space because you look at how they travel through that whole apartment building up and then all the way down. You can use it in moderate bunches. It's the total converse of what we're talking about with the comic book movies is every single frame is a different shot, different angle.
Well, the fans' credit, I'm seeing a lot more feedback on SoundCloud and Twitter of people saying I can't look at comic book action movies the same way now. You guys have talked so much about how often they cut. And I think that's a good thing. The more audiences become aware of this rapid cutting and dislike it, I think the more chance we have of it disappearing or at least lowering.
Yeah.
I'm not even saying that Avengers should have uncut shots that are amazing like that. I think I would like to see something that at least establishes where everybody is and where they are in relation to each other. And then if you want to cut, use it sparingly.
Right.
For, case in point, Die Hard doesn't quite, it's not like one take when they're doing all that stuff. Yeah. But there's an idea of where everybody is because of it does such a great job telling you what a floor looks like before anything starts happening. And when it does cut, you're like, oh, well, okay, that makes sense. He's, that's where John McClane's going, or the John McClane's shooting over there. Okay, yeah, that's where they are, The perfect example is when he first gets on the radio to Hans, where he starts introducing himself and he calls himself Roy Rogers and that kind of thing. What he is doing as they're going through that conversation, it shows the detonators. He's taking this shit off of the dead body. He's kind of walking through that Japanese-style office and everything. Yeah. You see in the background, at the end of that scene, the elevator light come on, and then he comes around on the other side and says, "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker." Yeah. And that's how you fucking establish all that shit. Right. And that's how you do it. And if you're the Avengers, I don't think you have a problem doing that same type of thing. Yeah, it's a more enclosed space or whatever, but give me a sense of what this, in the Age of Ultron, give me a sense of what this city is and where everything is. And I've mainly, my biggest beef with the action on those movies so far is that just everybody's just beating, they're just beating things down. Yeah. And that's all it is. And we're supposed to be all excited. I'm supposed to be all happy because they're wearing a backpack. But I'm supposed to be excited about all of this because oh, look at that, the Hulk's pounding them. Yeah. Oh, Thor with his hammer, he's pounding them. Oh, Captain America with his shield, he's pounding them. It's like it's none of that.
Black Widow with her pistol.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. She's shooting at them. But that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, hey, Age of Ultron and Joss Whedon should have gotten with this amount of time they have and go, you know what? Get all of these actors and they're going to know their shit and they're going to all do this. We're going to do this in one take and it's going to be awesome. Now, if they did, it would be awesome.
It would be awesome. Yes.
But I am at least a little bit forgiving on that.
Have you read any of the stuff about Johnny Depp and his lawsuit with his managers about money?
Yeah.
Where one of two things has happened. He's either been embezzled by his managers or he wastes money like no one else. And one of the accusations is that for the last 5-10 years, he's employed a guy to feed him his lines in an earpiece right before he says them on set so he doesn't have to memorize anything.
Really?
Interesting.
And I just thought, wow. And also, that's like The Wedding Planner with Jennifer Lopez.
Oh, yeah,
Remember where she feeds the toast to the best man? You see that movie?
Yeah.
I might have been on drugs when I saw that movie.
Well, I was thinking it was kind of like Brando, which wouldn't be a big surprise since they did Don Juan DeMarco together, but Brando was long rumored to have had the lines of the movie, like Godfather and stuff, taped underneath in the desk and everything.
Wow.
And he's just doing them right then and there. Yeah. It's like, why should I memorize this shit when it's right there?
Yeah.
And you can hide it.
I guess if you can afford to pay somebody to feed your lines and you hate memorizing and you're a super mega rich movie star, go for it. But that just seems like a guy who's given up.
Yeah.
The line reader makes $6 million a year.
Yeah, seriously. How much money? To keep it quiet even. You got to pay that guy a lot of money.
And just to think, he had to pay that guy a whole bunch of money for Mordecai.
Yeah.
It's so bad. It's so bad. All right, so let's get down to brass tacks, gentlemen.
All right. That means testicles, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that's right.
I always assumed.
Die Hard and Children of Men, who's first?
I think it'd be me.
Now, by the way, I think when we get to the championship, we really should do the hold up the thing. I don't think any one person should be the guy who decides.
That's a good idea.
I dig. Just put it on our phones.
So, anyway, you're the first one on this?
Yeah. And I'm going to have a rough time sleeping if I don't pick Children of Men because the action in Die Hard is terrific. You don't feel it in your gut, though, as you do with Children of Men. I think it deals with certainly bigger themes. It's set only 10 years from now. which is a little disconcerting.
Yeah,
Well, it was also
again.
made, 10, 15 years
Yeah,
ago?
well,
So-
yeah, 11 years, I guess, 2006, right?
Yeah, 2006.
Yeah, so everything about that seems plausible enough to raise the stakes a little bit. And I mentioned it every time. Every time somebody shoots a bullet, you feel like that bullet is meant for something.
Yeah.
And you don't get that anywhere else. I mean, even in Die Hard's great and everything, but the bullets, every bullet doesn't matter in that. There's no more table.
Yeah.
So so Children of Men is my selection.
Okay.
Mr. Takagi.
I read about it in Forbes. Okay, I made a decision, I think, after I watched these movies. And as much as it pains me, I think Die Hard's a better movie.
Oh, wow.
I think Children of Men is technically more brilliant than anything we've seen in the last 15 years or so. Like, technically, nothing touches it. And it's definitely got the emotional resonance, like we were talking about before, over Die Hard. Die Hard's got better characters. It's got, I think, a better plot, better plotting, and the action is insanely great to me. And I feel like I'm more John McClane than I am Clive Owen in Children of Men.
Oh.
And just because, yeah, we probably wouldn't be able to do what John McClane does, but he at least makes it look like you could do it.
Yeah.
And I think I won't say anymore, but I'm gonna say Die Hard here.
Well, you're right in a sense, because he's not buff. You know what I mean? He's not like a gym rat who's got huge muscles and can just strong his way through everything. He's got to use his brain. Well, I made up my mind on how I was voting on this a couple days ago, and I did not anticipate being the deciding vote.
You're the decider.
There are a lot of things that movies can give us, right? Like I just said, Fantastic Mr. Fox is magical. It's a delightful hour and a half. You'll have a smile on your face for a few hours, but it's not trying to do what either Die Hard or Children of Men are trying to do, right? And, I think movies that have a simple goal and hit it is great. There's all those Fast and Furious fans out there are like, if you just turn your brain off, I have a good time. Why can't that be a good movie? Okay, fine. I'm voting Children of Men because I think it does more. Die Hard is basically perfect for what it's trying to be, and it's fantastically entertaining. But sort of what you were touching on, Barrett, is that gut element that there's an emotional punch to the action I'm seeing in Children of Men, whereas the action I'm seeing in Die Hard is just entertaining me. And because of that, and because I have to pick a reason, Children of Men is my pick, and I just hope McClane doesn't come for me in the next Die Hard movie.
I obviously have no problem with Children of Men.
Die Hard 6. Jeremy's
I have
dead.
no problem. I have no problem with Children of Men advancing here. But I felt like Children of Men was going to win anyway. But that said, after just assessing which movie am I enjoying the most out of this, Die Hard won it on.
No, I agree. I think Die Hard is the more enjoyable movie for sure.
Now, yeah, there's honestly though, I think there is a good debate as to whether it is a better movie overall, because Die Hard is done very well. It's not, and it's almost a miracle in itself. It came out in 1988. Remember, in the 80s, movies were just there's a lot of insanity.
Yeah, an action movie back then was what? Beverly Hills Cop?
Rambo. It was
if
Top
we were lucky,
Gun.
it would be Beverly Hills Cop.
It was Rambo. It was Top Gun. It was a lot of these like really ridiculous movies.
Iron Eagle.
Top Gun Light.
Yeah. Both of those came out the same year, though. I thought Iron Eagle was like a Top Gun ripoff. They're like, oh, look at what Top Gun did. Let's make Iron Eagle. Nope, they came out the same year.
There's even a third one. I can't remember what it is. There's like a third franchise that rips off both of those.
Hot Shots?
What it's called?
yeah.
Legal Eagles? I don't remember what it's called.
Legal Eagles, which is a law movie. Robert Redford and Daryl Hannah and Deborah Winger.
I got Iron Eagle in the brain. Sorry.
Well, that's the thing. Every time I hear the movie Iron Eagle, there's that announcer named Iron Eagle.
Yeah.
All right, on to the next matchup is Pulp Fiction and The Matrix.
Dun, 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 dun.
Wow.
So what did we learn watching these again?
I'll tell you what I learned, and it wasn't from watching it again, although I did that too. We were talking last time. Jeremy mentioned that Will Smith was in talks to do or considered doing the Neo role, and we pulled this quote I sent to you guys that was kind of like some backhanded shade at Canoe.
Oh yeah,
where he was like, I think Keanu did a really good job with Neo because he just let the movie be the star, and he didn't feel the need to perform.
Well, and he also said,
I would perform.
Yeah, he said I was too young, and I would have overperformed the role.
Yeah.
And I think we can infer backhanded compliment in this, but the one complaint I've seen from fans about us advancing the Matrix so far is that the characters are all bland and boring.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't agree with that right off the bat. I think Morpheus is a really engaging character.
Mm-hmm.
Trinity is a little bit bland. Mm-hmm. Neo is a little bit bland. My point is, I think that's the point.
Yeah.
They've been dead basically inside as pods serving the computer bosses and whatnot. That's the whole point of Mr. Anderson even getting awoke, is that he can tell something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that is part of what they were going for. So it doesn't bother me that the characters are a little bit one note, because I feel like that's intentional and does let the concept stand out more.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I just wanted to say that. Maybe Will Smith was insulting him. I kind of got the vibe.
Probably not. I just thought it was fun.
Yeah, but I think he was more insulting himself. Like, I was too immature at that point as an actor.
Well, he's right.
Yeah, I agree, because it's after this that he starts doing stuff like I Am Legend, where you actually start to see some range.
It is really weird seeing these movies that you've seen like a whole bunch, and you're trying to see if there's anything new you can come out of it with. The Matrix, I know that it's so cool that you sort of forget to ask questions a lot of times, and I don't think they really properly answered those questions in the sequels or anything. Some of it was and everything, but there's a lot of stuff in the Matrix they kept coming up and saying stuff about and everything, and I was just like, I don't know.
Oh, me too.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
At the end, when he's making that phone call to the Machine Lord or whatever it is, he's saying that he's going to wake all these people up. He's going to tell everybody. Mm-hmm. He doesn't do that in the sequels, does he?
I think what the Wachowskis were hoping we would believe is that it's just a long process, and they have to take a long time to identify which people to wake up first. But no, I've always had the same issue. The first one ends with the promise of sequels that don't match what we get.
Right.
But it doesn't. I don't think it harms The Matrix itself as a movie.
No, I don't think so. It's just a weird question that I had coming out of it, because I think had they gone that route, I think you would have gotten better sequels.
You might have.
Of saying, like, we're going to lead this uprising as an entire human race, of which there are millions in these pods.
You want to talk about dead characters. It's that Neo fight in the first sequel with the agents in the first 20 minutes of the film. And again, I think that's what they're going for, because the agents have upgrades or what have you, but it's lifeless.
Yeah.
And you compare that to his battle with Agent Smith in the subway from the first movie, which is just full of emotion and, God, it's just night and day. And I don't know what happened. Oh, well, we're not here to talk about the sequels.
But yeah, and the thing with Cypher is still bugs me a bit, because he's sitting there talking to Trinity and saying, like, if he really is the one, I shouldn't be able to pull this plug, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, just fucking do it.
But it does give me I love that moment. My favorite line to quote from that movie is, how can he be the one if he's dead?
Exactly.
I've always been more bugged.
And he should be.
I've always been more bugged by the way it goes down before that, because he sort of intentionally separates himself from Trinity and Neo because he's supposed to go back to the ship and kill everybody. And when Trinity calls in, the operator's like, "Oh, you're not far from Cypher." And Trinity goes, "Cypher?" Like, she knows he's supposed to be dead.
Yeah.
And all they did was get separated.
Yeah.
But it's almost like the character read the script before she gave her line reading there. That line reading has always bugged me.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're really kind of nitpicking here, and that's what we tend to do. But that was one thing that stuck out of me. It was like, why do you why are you asking that question that way?
But there was one. It was a great thing about The Matrix was it was maybe the first time I watched this, and I really actually thought about the way Neo should be thinking about how he's interacting with the Matrix and everything. During that fight scene with Morpheus, Morpheus is just like, why am I able to? Was he say?
Why am I beating you? How did I beat you?
Why did I beat you? And I never really thought about it before because I'm sitting there going, well, because Morpheus, he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. That's why, you motherfucker. And then I was thinking, oh, but he said basically just think it and do it is essentially what he's telling him.
Yeah.
And it's something I never really thought of before watching this. Is like, oh, really anything's possible. You just have to be able to think that you can do it and do it and everything.
Oh, and there's that wonderful moment where they slow it down when Neo's punches are flying so fast and you see Morpheus's expression like, holy fuck. Like he cannot believe that even though he thinks Neo is the one, he's still shocked by what this guy can do so fast. Little touches like that all over this movie. I think another thing I noticed this viewing is how wonderful the Oracle character is and how great that actress played sort of a Gandalf style wise but not giving you all the information. She just comes in and steals the middle of the movie in that scene. And there's also that wonderful bit where she's like, I can see why she likes you. He's like, who? Not too bright, though.
I do dislike a little bit how everything is like sort of, it's sort of this, we've got to go see the Oracle. The Oracle's going to tell us the stuff, and then she decides to just do vagaries.
She gives him reverse psychology.
Just for him. And in fact, this was in the Sins video that I recently saw too, was she's only vague with Morpheus and Neo because she tells Trinity that she's going to fall in love with the one, right?
Yeah. But, I understand that she's just trying to... I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, though. Like saying, sorry, kid, you're probably not the one or whatever. And then that drives you to be the one. Yeah. Because afterwards, he was accepting of it. He was just like, I'm just some guy. And that could have been that, except the fact that there was some extraordinary circumstance that got him to think, all right, I'm going to go do this because I'm just some ordinary guy.
Yeah, I mean, the basic gist is in order to become the one, he has to believe in himself something greater than he has previously. And the way the movie shows it is, no one's ever done this before. And because it's surprise, but he ends up finding himself to be the one in that breaking into the tower. But I think it could have worked just as well with the Oracle saying, yep, you're the one. Yeah. And he could have come out and gone, I'm the one. Yeah, I can do anything.
I think it might have been better if we just didn't hear what she told him.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's a good point.
And he comes out and she told me, and then then Morpheus goes, she told you what you needed to hear, whatever. And that's all. We didn't need to hear the kind of confusing thing, because like I said, he was ready to just be like, oh yeah. Thanks for waking me up, guys.
Well, and that's what frustrates me about that scene is that he only tells Neo that so that Neo doesn't kill everyone's joy by saying, I'm not the one, right? Because they've told him plenty of things the Oracle has told others. I think even at that point, Trinity's already told him on the way there that the Oracle said I would fall in love with the one or whatever, but it doesn't seem like there's secrecy about what the Oracle says, except for Neo. Don't tell anybody. What was said was for you alone. And maybe that's just Morpheus's insecurity coming out in that moment. Like, I can't bear to hear it if you're not the one. I don't really know. But it's always kind of been a little bit of a tripping
fascinating.
point for me.
It's not a negative. It's just one of those weird things in movies where you're just sitting there going, is that really the right choice? I don't know. Anyway, Pulp Fiction. All right, watching this again for about the 30th time.
What did you think? Any new realizations?
It's interesting. Because of what you guys had said about the Bruce Willis thing, I looked at that scene more than anything in this one. There's a couple of things that I came out of this realizing that I didn't really think hard about before or whatever. One is Marcellus Wallace is essentially the main character of this movie.
He is the glue. He's the nexus, right?
Every single story revolves around him in some way, even though he is not
on screen,
on screen, except for the one big scene. Every single character, though, that these stories is about loyalty to Marcellus Wallace. Every single one of them. Never really thought of it in that light before, but you have Jules, who's after a close call, decides, you know what, I'm not in the right business. And he's going to go tell Marcellus, this is my last day. So it's all about who's loyal to what. And then John Travolta, his character, Vincent Vega, he has to be loyal. He has to not sleep with his wife.
Not get her killed.
Yeah, not get her killed. And all that. And then, Bruce Willis's character, he has to decide. Now, he has a point where he betrays him, and then as he's walking out the door, he's got this realization that what do you think he turns him back? There's two things that I'm thinking about here.
Mm-hmm.
One, you could go on the surface and say, man, the stuff that's going on down there just isn't right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go down there. It could be both of these things I'm about to say. The other thing is, do you think maybe he started walking out the door and going, man, all I'm going to be doing is running anyway?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think that's the one.
I think, this is my ticket. This is
how I clear my slate.
Yeah, this is it. This is my only way out, really. He could die, and then, the rest of his, if he goes to Indochina, somebody's going to be hiding a bowl of rice. Copycatting his ass. But, this is the only way that he can both, on a basic humanitarian level, make his conscience clear, but then also write himself off for the future.
Stop running.
Yeah.
He's going to run for the rest of his life.
That's the thing that I took out of that more than anything, because I would always I think I watched this movie enough to be passive about it, where you're just and you're just sitting there going, oh yeah, it's messed up. He's just going down there and helping somebody out who's going through something that nobody should have to go through. Mm-hmm. It's more than that, I think. And that's something that I came out of this viewing with, and because it was, I said, you sit there and think about this character. He realizes they were waiting for him at his apartment. What do you think? Where else do you think he's going to go?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, into China, man.
Mr. Soon-to-be living the rest of his short-ass life in agonizing pain rapist here.
Yeah.
That
which is
fucking
great.
monologue
so
is
great.
so good.
It's great.
Parody with I'm going to get medieval on your ass, but that is so menacing. It's great, man.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's when Tarantino, I think that's probably where he got his jollies off and went off and did this whole revenge porn thing with Django Unchained, is where he Marcellus Wallace is going to fuck this guy's world up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And you'd be cheering for him every step of the way too.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, obviously Marcellus could just as simply just turn right around and say, I wouldn't even be in this mess if it wasn't for you.
Mm-hmm.
And he's right.
But he lets him go, and it's a really nice touch to this movie. And
I also think, sorry to interrupt, I also think part of that is buying Bruce's silence. I don't think Marcellus is the kind of guy who ever wants to know.
Oh, hell no.
Wants people to know what just happened to him.
There ain't no you and me.
Right. Yeah. And so I think part of it is you stay quiet, never come back to California, we'll clean slate. I think so. They both have something to gain there by that deal.
Yeah.
You've lost all your LA privileges.
Yeah. I am still a little upset though that if the watch was so goddamn important, this is so important that he's willing to risk his life for it.
Mm-hmm.
Why didn't he just bring it along
Take
in his
it with
duffel bag?
Exactly. Exactly.
That was one of the things that on this viewing, I was sitting there going, this whole thing revolves around his fucking watch.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I understand why, because his ancestors went through a lot of shit to keep that watch, going through the family line and everything. But at the same time, I'm like, man, if that was the most important thing, you could have easily put that in your duffel and you would have been fine.
That's true.
Yeah, there's no reason not to. If you're throwing the fight and hop in a cab, or not throwing the fight and then hopping in a cab to run, just take it with you.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning of that Christopher Walken scene where he goes through and tells him about the watch, Butch's mom comes in. And she's like, you remember how I told you that your dad was killed in Vietnam after being a POW?
Yeah.
And the kid's like, yeah. She's gone through this story. And I'm like, wow.
The very first time I watched that movie, I was expecting her to say that Christopher Walken was his dad.
Yeah.
I was it's like, remember when I told you your dad died in a POW camp? He didn't. Well, here's your dad.
Oh, that totem pole. He'll be here forever.
Yes. So yeah, I think I took a little bit more out of it than I had before in previous viewings, because after you watch it the first couple of times, you're just, okay, I'm down with this movie. I understand it. You just pop it in and just kind of like mindlessly watch it after that, because when you're actually just watching it, like looking for stuff and everything, it's a different experient. And
I quoted this movie while I was on my vacation with my family this past week, and nobody except my brother knew I was quoting it, because I got up and went to the bathroom and came back and all the food had been delivered. Like, don't you just love it when you go to the bathroom and come back to the table and your food is there? And my mom was like, "It's the best."
One thing about Pulp Fiction that I always wondered about, though, so when Mia snorts the heroin, I always wondered how she overdosed from that. Like, I thought the real problem was that she snorted something that you're supposed to take through a needle.
That's what I thought.
And do you still call that an overdose, though?
No, it is. Okay, so with regular cocaine, so she was making lines of this shit. With regular cocaine, if you do like a line, then it takes you to a certain high. With heroin, you take a very concentrated amount, and that's why you boil it or that kind of thing to get like the extract, essentially.
Okay.
If you do an entire line of that shit, especially as powerful as the madman is supposed to be, then that's going to lead to an overdose. So that's how I took it.
Listen to Barrett dropping the hardcore drug
That was
knowledge.
one of the things that I'd always wondered about, because they said they just immediately say, "Oh, she's ODing," like no real examination or anything. Like, well, there's a white frothy mess coming out of her mouth and like blood and everything. Like, I never understood why the shot to the heart actually worked, because I didn't feel like it was an overdose. I just thought she did it wrong.
Yeah, the way that I took it is that he took one look at her, because she had the baggie in his hand. He knew it was in his jacket pocket, and he saw the mirror, the lines over there, and he was like, "Fuck. Yeah, I'm screwed."
I do have a problem with her. I mean, granted, she's the wife of like a crime lord, but she just takes that shit. Yeah. Oh, what's this? I'm going to do it. And also, is she ignorant to not understand it's heroin? Does she think it's coke because it's like some kind of special high-end heroin that looks more like coke?
I don't know. Again, this is just a silly thing that I've thought about, because they're out of balloons. And he does like a baggie with Twistix, and maybe that's how they package typically.
It's gotta be
that is a great little detail, by the way.
Dude, man, you're killing it right now.
Yeah.
You got all the drug knowledge.
Because that's an innocuous thing. You're like, you don't really think much about it, but that's something that you could definitely read between the lines and everything. Never thought about that before.
I'm sure Tarantino agrees with me.
Yeah, Tarantino definitely
or
agrees.
he will once he hears this.
That's right.
Yeah. Again, Tarantino, avid listener of the podcast.
Yes,
that's
definitely.
Right. The other thing too, I love too, is those little things like that, because there's the point where Vincent Vega says, "I'm just going to take her out and I'm going to laugh at her fucking jokes, and then we'll take her." And then there's a whole thing about her
telling
a joke.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that.
And he does have that tiny little giggle after she is like,
yeah.
Ketchup.
Yeah. It's like, although I think I'm a little too petrified to laugh. It's just fine. It's not funny,
That does sound like a terrible show, though. I'm glad it didn't get picked
Fox
up.
Force 5.
Although I've read that the Fox Force 5 was sort of the basis for what Kill Bill characters were. All right, so Pulp Fiction versus The Matrix.
That's it. You start us off, baby.
Baby. Man, I tell you what. So many good things about both of these movies.
Yep.
Which one engaged me on a different level, and that's going to be Pulp Fiction.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. The Matrix obviously has a lot of great philosophical things that, you sit there and you think about that, like, oh, I never really thought about that before. What if we are in the Matrix?
Yeah.
But Pulp Fiction, I love the characters in this. I love how everything's plotted. I love how those little things come back, and it's just such an oddball movie, man. I mean, I think we might be used to it now, but a GIMP, come on.
That's the cherry on
I mean, come on, man.
I'll tell you what, back then, my Alta Vista search history was filled with GIMP-related queries as I tried to figure out what that even was.
Oh, yeah.
Alta Vista.
That was about the 90th thing we've ever said. I just feel like there's such a great amount of humor in it. Obviously, Pulp Fiction has a lot of shit like, why didn't he just bring the watch with him? Motherfucker, bring the watch with you if it's so goddamn important to you and all that. But ultimately, I can't fault it. So I'm gonna go with that.
All right.
I have been torn on this since we last recorded because I'm overthinking it.
Mm-hmm.
After Chris's heroic and unbiased choosing of The Matrix over his favorite movie of all time, I feel like if I pick The Matrix, I risk being called a homer.
Well,
I feel like
totally fine, by the way.
I feel like if I pick Pulp Fiction, I risk looking like I'm trying to look as noble as Chris did last time.
oh, yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
I'm going with The Matrix.
Ah.
Because the only way I can make this decision is my gut. And while it happens to be my personal favorite movie of all time, I think it's got deeper things to say. I think it stays with you longer. I think this is a silly thing. We're in the Final Four, and I'm going to base my judgment on the fact that I think it's mostly way more accessible than Pulp Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And as an illustration, my wife had this friend in college. He was a guy. They didn't date, but he always asked her to watch Fight Club. You'll love it. You'll love it. And when she started telling me this, I was like, that guy didn't know you at all.
Yeah.
Because my wife would fucking hate Fight Club. There's nothing in there she wants to see. That movie's not for everyone. And Fight Club is fantastic. I think it's great, but I wouldn't want my mom to watch it. Right.
Yeah.
And so because it has more to say and it's a little deeper and that Bruce Willis interlude kind of bugs me and Pulp Fiction is so extreme, I'm going to go with The Matrix, even though it's going to lose because Barrett's going to vote Pulp Fiction.
Man, I actually had quite a debate internally about this.
Yeah.
Because I think I watched The Matrix after I watched Pulp Fiction. And it does surprise me. Before I met you, Jeremy, I had never heard anybody say that The Matrix was their favorite movie of all time.
That's crazy.
There was, I think I may have told Chris this, like there was, right when it came out, there was a lot of people who were saying like, that's justifiably, that's something that we've never seen before. That may be one of my favorite movies of all time. But not recently until I started hearing it from you. And it made me to realize, because I really, really enjoyed it, but I wouldn't have ever put it up there. The more I watch it, the more I dig what you're saying about like the themes and how deep it goes.
I thought about getting a Matrix tattoo.
Did you really?
Yeah. Like, I don't think I'm ever going to do this, but about 5 or 6 years ago, I was thinking about getting the word choice tattooed on my wrist in the Matrix font.
Oh, nice.
Anyway.
Interesting.
It goes deeper than just my love of the movie, but go ahead.
Well, this movie does run deep, and I agree with you that it does say a lot more about humanity and about concepts than Pulp Fiction. What gets me about The Matrix is a little bit of like the, I don't know, cheesy. There's a couple of cheesy dialogues and lines in there where like Morpheus is like, he's beginning to believe, and welcome to the desert of the real. Like, it's just like, man, you're badass enough. You don't have to do all that stuff. And then I got very, very close to picking it. And then I watched it when I saw Neo, when they shoot the bullets after him, after he's become the one. He's like, no. And he holds up his hand. Like, fuck, that's even more than the whoa. That's the Keanu-est moment, I think, for me. Pulp Fiction hits every single scene from that, including Tim Roth's performance, Samuel L. Jackson's performance. That's my choice, and that's going to win. That's going to go on to the championship.
Humanity. I knew it was going to happen.
All right.
That's all right. I hold no grudges.
That gives us a fantastic championship.
I have no idea where we're going to go
Children
on this.
of Men versus Pulp Fiction is our championship.
Can't believe we're actually here.
Yeah. I can't either.
Let's do the recap again.
Yeah, let's do the recap.
Stall.
That's right.
Stall.
Somebody asked a friend of mine who actually listens to the podcast, by the way, texted me the other day, and there was a question that I really couldn't answer, and maybe you can.
Okay.
But he said that during the scene where they're shooting at the agents from the helicopter and everything, considering that everything is the Matrix, how come they can't just overtake the helicopter by themselves since it's all in the Matrix anyway?
Oh, well, that's a decent point, except that I'm guessing they've set the rules up in the Matrix to prevent a helicopter ever flying itself, and thereby making all the plugged-in humans who think the world is real go, what the fuck is that? That helicopter's flying itself.
Who's flying it?
Trinity.
Oh, okay.
Trinity's
So they
flying
can't take over Trinity, but what he's saying is it's all connected. The machines should be able to take over a machine.
I got you. Yeah.
But I think they have rules written in the software to keep the world seeming real so that people don't ask too many questions and question their reality, which would blow the whole thing up. I think that would be the response the filmmakers might give you. It's always bothered me more that Morpheus gets shot in the ankle and still somehow runs and jumps, even though I know Neo jumps out to meet him. But Morpheus should crumple right at that point.
Yeah.
But now he keeps moving.
Yeah, I always assume that they sort of established in the movie that they can only really take over other humans when they're trying to get into vehicles and stuff like that. It's right at the very beginning that happens where the truck is driving by and you need to see that, whatever. And Smith overtakes a body or whatever and he runs the van towards the phone booth. Stuff like that. But it was something interesting. I didn't really think about it before because The Matrix is one of those movies that, especially if you watch all three of them, it's kind of hard to remember where you are and what the rules are supposed to be, like whether you're in the Matrix or whether there was a thing because I think you were the primary guy on Matrix Reloaded.
I think so.
Or Revolutions, one of them.
It was the second one.
And you were writing something. It was Neo versus Agent Smith, but they were in Zion at the time that they were fighting. And they shouldn't really be badasses when they're in Zion. They should just be, average schmoes at that point.
No, that's where it gets confusing because Neo then stops the Sentinels in the real world, right?
Yeah.
Well, and again, I contend Reloaded has problems way before the end, but I think they could have salvaged the franchise if they'd have gone in a more obvious direction after that. Because what they end up saying is he's the one, so there's something in his code that's connected to the machine world or what have you. But if they had said, oh, Zion's just a different computer program.
Yeah.
And you've never really been out of it.
Yeah.
I think that could have added a whole nother layer of interesting. And again, who knows what they're going to do with this potential sequel, reboot, whatever bullshit they're doing.
Well, another thing that the sequel sort of confused me on was that after he finds out that, oh, this is like the 5th or 6th Matrix or whatever that they've ever built. And, the first one was they tried to make everybody happy and everybody rejected it and then so on and so forth. I forgot that in the whole where Morpheus is like explaining to Neo what's going on, I forgot that there was even a time where there were actual human beings like everything was normal until we built AI.
Yeah.
And then AI took over and that's how we got to this, this place. I forgot that completely.
Yeah.
And so like, I was like, oh, so everything that happened like around 1999 and before actually happened and everything. Then they built a Matrix after that. And I was like, that was something that was completely lost by those sequels because the sequels made me think, oh, from the beginning, there was always and has been a Matrix.
I had so many good theories because after the second one, basically every time he meets with the Oracle, she gives him something to eat. And I had a theory that was what was making him powerful, that it wasn't her advice or his belief in himself, but whatever trinket medicine it was in the candy or the cookie that she gave him or what have you.
Yeah.
There were all sorts of cool little touches and threads that they could have gone after and they didn't.
With the worst possible.
Although I do say that final fight between Smith and Neo is better than any Superman movie fight we've seen. It's certainly better than Zod and Superman.
Yep.
All right, so we have a final 2.
We do.
Do we need to write these things on our phone and then we're gonna all do it?
Yeah, we're gonna put it on our phone. We're gonna and then we'll read them off. We have all picked. We are all locked. We're all locked in.
This is a hard choice.
This is a hard choice. So
I'm picked.
So hard of a choice that Oh man, now I just how do you pick between these two movies? I mean, there's not really any category that I can think of out of these two that should be the reason why one should beat the other.
No.
I mean,
both amazing directorial feats.
They're amazing directorial feats. Pulp Fiction probably wins on script.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have, as far as like, humor, obviously Pulp Fiction's going to win that. But then, drama, Children of Men's going to win that, even though of course the needle to the heart and everything those are some real, like, of course that ends up being humorous too. Yeah. By the time it's over.
By the way, they shot that in reverse. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, that would make sense because you don't want to hurt an actual person.
They literally they had the needle in her chest, or the whatever it was, the retractable needle, and he pulls it out, and then they shot it in reverse, so it looks like he's slamming it down on her.
That's such a simple trick.
Yeah,
I would never have thought that.
Yeah. Well, and because you always wonder, like, I mean, they would have had to gotten a dummy if they didn't.
Yeah.
Because there's no way you're gonna
bring it down in a stabbing motion. What, I got to stab her 3 times?
Yeah. No, you don't have to stab her fucking 3 times. But like, that was a scene that apparently, like, a lot of people had to like leave the theater.
My wife can't watch it.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, she's a nurse.
She's a nurse. Yeah.
Well, you see how he does it. This is, by the way, the reason why Tarantino is not playing Eric Stoltz's character, because that's what he wanted to do originally. He wanted to be behind the camera for this scene.
Yeah.
And like, just the way everything is so close up, and you see like the needle, the drop coming off and everything, and then like one. And then I love Rosanna Arquette's face. Oh my God, it's so priceless.
Yeah, she can't get enough.
It's so priceless. Oh my God, she's got that look like I don't even really care if she dies.
And she doesn't.
Yeah.
I've never seen this. This is awesome.
But it's such an intense scene.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I guess we're all going to hold up our phones now, and then we'll count it up.
It'll be like a Coldplay concert. Everybody holds up their phones.
All right. I don't know if anybody can read this.
We have Jeremy, Children of Men. We have Barrett, Pulp Fiction, and we have Chris, Children of Men.
Wow. Also, Barrett, your phone was off. We couldn't see anything.
Oh, sorry. I knew what it was.
All right. So.
Way to ruin the hold up the phones gag.
As I kind of expected going into this Final Four.
This
Children
is what
of Men.
I did, is I played Children of Men in my mind against all 3 of the other Final Four, and I didn't see any other movie coming out on top.
Mm-hmm.
If The Matrix had beaten Pulp Fiction, I still would have voted Children of Men.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that good.
It's amazing that this movie is underseen, and we've just selected it as the champion of all these.
I'm glad of that.
Yeah,
I am too, because if we're going to expose more people to it, so be it. Because I think that the majority of people who watch it because of us will love it.
Yeah. Clive Owen is so fucking great in that movie.
Well, and we just did today the King Arthur Sins video, starring Clive Owen. 2 years prior to this, he was in that bullshit. And then he finds himself in a masterpiece like this, and that's just a stroke of luck.
You could see, though, even that movie was such a fucking mess, that King Arthur movie. He's definitely the best part of it, though.
Well, yeah, he's clearly got movie star charisma.
He's got the
even in that
gravitas and all that stuff that you see, which is hilarious that he's like like a government schlub in this movie, but he becomes such a hero.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Even though I voted for Pulp Fiction, Children of Men is absolutely awesome.
Can't go wrong with either of these movies.
No.
So we have finally crowned a champion.
Yay!
One shining moment.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. So
That's a great Luther Vandross.
Thank you. I didn't even know that's who sang that song.
now that we've picked Children of Men, which is a pick that I can get behind. I'm so proud of that pick. Like nothing sort of like kind of like weaseled its way into the like.
When Harry Met Sally didn't win, is what you're trying to say.
I'm trying to say When Harry Met Sally. Not winning is my biggest, But now that we've picked this, are there any movies that we think got shortchanged? I know we do. Out of this group
that never made the bracket, or within the bracket?
Within the bracket. Although I guess we could say if you thought of something that didn't make the bracket, then we could talk about that too.
I'll throw one out. Did you guys think? Maybe we've talked about this before. Did you guys think Inception belonged in here?
I did.
Maybe somewhere.
I did. Although the way we are doing it here, we have to pick something like we've already, for the most part, unanimously picked most of the time a movie of the best of that year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to kind of figure out what's that second choice out of all these other stuff.
And you got to get the 4 decades worth, you know?
This is a situation, you know how the NCAA tournament, a lot of times what'll happen is in a conference championship, some no-name team will go through and just win.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's kind of like Animal House. Like Animal House takes a spot that Inception normally would.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, like if the SEC tournament, you instead of Kentucky, who's automatically going to go anyway, somebody like Mississippi comes in there, and then it sort of screws some other team that was hoping to just be selected to be in there. So yes, I do, but I don't know what you would have gotten rid of to put Inception.
That's the dilemma, right? Like, because I could see. Like, I don't think Hunt for Red October made the bracket, did it?
No.
Mm-mm. I could have seen that in the bracket pretty easily. And, within the bracket, I think Goodfellas, Shawshank, Dark Knight, well, in my opinion, all could have or should have gone further. LA Confidential, in hindsight, I probably would make the same pick, but it still deserved to go a lot further than it got to.
Most definitely. Maybe we don't. I don't know if there's a way to really put it up against something that, I didn't think Sideways was actually going to have a chance in that matchup. That's one to me, like out of the whole group, I was like, well, yeah, that's a pretty soft matchup for LA Confidential. Even though Sideways is great, I don't have any problem with it. I felt really bad about Goodfellas going in the first round. Really bad. Still feel that way, and I don't think it probably should have gone up against something like Shawshank, even though the way this has to go, since Shawshank didn't win 1994, it got a lower seed that it probably should have deserved a higher seed.
Right.
I think if we sort of did this with let's chart it out and let's make, Shawshank is a 12 seed, but it really is like a 5 seed or 4 seed. We probably should have done something like that if we were really trying to make everything fair, I guess, quote unquote, even though it's still, ultimately.
Yeah, the way it was set up was like just what you said. If you win your year or your conference, then you get
but that's more
automatic
accurate.
bid. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people who weren't around in the beginning of the bracket who have since been listening to further episodes of the show say things like Godfather, and there's usually a fan that comes along and explains, well, they only started with 1975, so Godfather wasn't an option. And yeah, if we extended it back another 15 years, from 1960 on, then there's a bunch of films that probably should have been in there.
Oh yeah,
Godfather 2.
If Godfather was allowed in here, I guess maybe even Godfather 2, would they have won pretty handily?
I don't. Right now, I don't know how any of these movies that may have beaten The Godfather.
Yeah, I'd have a rough time. But I also kind of thought that way for Jaws too.
Yeah, that's true. It's not until you actually run into a matchup you really know one way or the other. Because there's a lot gets taken out of you when you have to say goodbye to something like Jaws. Like Jaws is legendary, but you have to look past the legendary status of those movies. You have to look past it, and it's hard because there's 40 years of legendary there. It's like trying to say anything bad about the Lord of the Rings trilogy or something like that. The books in general, something like that. It's like there's about 60 years worth of built up fan excitement about those books and everything. Say one bad thing about it, and the legend surpasses anything that you can say about it.
Now, that's what was cool about this, is that it forces you to look at what you really do, really get into these movies and figure out what works and what doesn't. We analyzed that section, the Butch section of Pulp Fiction, 7 different ways.
Yeah.
And I still don't know if I really like it or not. I think I do now more.
Yeah. And I like it way better than what he wrote it as, which is he had some inner monologue while he was walking through that whole thing where he's like, this is my World War III, baby, and all that other type of stuff. We kind of know that. We've heard the story from Christopher Walken earlier. We know this is your World War III. But yeah, ultimately it's silly, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of this is silly. It's all for fun.
Yes, it is. It was fun.
It was fun, and I think ultimately though we picked a great winner out of this.
Yep.
Something that if you looked at the brackets at the beginning, you say that one right there has a really good chance of going all the way, and it did.
Yep.
Yeah, I would say if I had picked 5 movies when we started the bracket that I thought could be the winner, this would have been one of them.
Mm-hmm.
This one probably City of God, Shawshank, Jaws. Those were the ones I was sort of thinking would make it all the way through.
Yeah, and I think that that particular bracket, that East region, that we might want to redo on that at some point because that was a heavy hitting region.
Yeah.
There Will Be Blood, City of God, Children of Men,
No
Country
Country
for Old Men. We're all in the same bracket.
Yeah.
And you had
Do the Right Thing.
and they inevitably ran up against each other too, and it was really hard to pick one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some, I guess there's some weird ones in here that are just, I don't know, like, I don't know if I would consider them something that goes really far, but maybe in a few years, yes, like, Ex Machina, Gone Baby Gone,
Whiplash.
Yep. Whiplash. These are movies that I think, if we are here 10 years from now doing this.
Yeah. I want to discuss La La Land in 10 years.
Yeah.
To see if my prediction will come true.
That it sours?
No, that I think it'll be a modern classic.
Yeah, I feel like it. I know 2 people pretty close to me that were just about it, and I think it's because it got so much hype.
Yeah, I think once that calms down, I think it's really going to have its own legs.
I think you're right.
Yeah, so now we're going to preview the bracket 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So what do you think? I think Infinity War Part 2 has a chance. What do you think?
Definitely.
I'm going with Ragnarok.
Yeah, Ragnarok.
Although I will say that Thor Ragnarok trailer gave me one of the biggest laughs of any Avengers, Marvel, anything ever when he sees that Hulk is his gladiator opponent and Thor's just jubilant.
Yeah.
I was dying.
I know him from work.
That was funny. Did you see Guardians 2?
No, have you?
Mm-hmm.
What'd you think?
I thought it was fun. The action was the worst thing, I think.
People have been clamoring for a mini pod. You guys want to give it 5-10 minutes of your thoughts?
I was on the Sift Pop podcast with Aaron, and it was funny. I started off saying I was between okay and liked it. I think I'm more about liked it now than I am, it's between those two or whatever. A lot of stuff that I hated about the action is mainly in that finale.
Oh, yeah.
It's really not, there's a lot of great action in it that I think I discounted a little bit once that finale came in because yes, there's punching involved.
Yes, of course.
And it just gets to that point where you just,
This is a movie that I actually would have wanted Thanos to be involved in.
Yeah.
Because it's like you could tell the limits that the main antagonist has.
Yeah.
And you know how it's going to go.
Well, that's the thing to me, too, is like you kind of know where this movie is trying to go, and it takes until the third act before they finally say, oh, okay, well, this is where we want to go with this. And you're like, yeah, I kind of figured that way back in the first act.
Yeah.
But you took this whole second act is like about them on this planet, and it's almost like, a TV show where they've got characters that haven't ever interacted with each other before, and they're trying to find a story to put them together in and everything. And it's like, yeah, that comes off really interesting. There's some the movie is funny ultimately is what it comes down to. Really funny, and some of the action in there that I didn't like. There's some really good action scenes. Most of them time they're very humorous. Like the scene with Rocket and the people, all the Michael Rooker.
Oh, the scrappers, scavengers,
it's Ravagers. All of them sneaking up on the camp and everything, and like he has all these things set up to like knock them back or whatever. But there's like a scene where like a whole bunch of like guys are flying above the trees, and then he hits another thing, and another group of guys.
That sounds awesome.
And Michael Rooker has a great scene with his little arrow and whistling through
cool.
there. It's really cool. So by the time I got to the spoiler part of the Sith Pop podcast and everything, I was sitting there going, "Oh yeah, there was that scene, and there was that scene, and it was this one and everything." ultimately it's a good time. But man, that finale and how long it takes to get to that finale almost drags it down.
It does.
To a point where you're like, I almost hate this movie. But it's kind of funny, like a movie like Funny People obviously is not a great movie by any means, but I remember Funny People laughing at a whole bunch of stuff, but it's a 2.5 hour movie.
Is that all? It seems like it's 4 hours.
It may be less. It may actually be less, but it's over 2 hours. It's one of those Apatow productions that he's just, I don't know where to cut this. I remember laughing a bunch, but there's so many other parts of it that are just like, you're just, oh, you got Eminem, huh? That's you're gonna make him have a scene for 5 minutes, huh? You know, a lot of that stuff. So it came out of Funny People going, I laughed a bunch, but I hated that movie.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I hate it more upon each other viewing.
How in the world does that happen? And I think Guardians of the Galaxy is way better, but it's also very long. I mean, it's 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's got 3 credit scenes in it.
It's got 5.
It's got 5?
Yes.
Okay. So we skipped
left
out
before this.
We skipped
the last
out
two.
after 3 of them. We skipped out.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I can just watch this some other time. Because as I've said before, how many times have you sat through the entire credits of a Marvel movie and you've seen the credit scene and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you have to really be a comic book person.
The only one that worked that way for me was the Avengers with the shawarma stuff, because that was just so hysterical.
But even then, as funny as that is, you have to wait through 12 minutes of credits.
Yeah. Well, and there are 5 credit scenes in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Yeah. That is like overkill on crack.
Well, there's 2 things about it, because first of all, when the movie
is Howard
ended,
the Duck in one of them?
No, he's in the movie.
He's actually in the movie.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Briefly.
What was funny is that when the movie ended, nobody moved. Nobody like shifted in their chair at all. Like typically when a movie's over, even though I know there's post-credit scenes, like I'm out of there. But nobody moved, and we watched. They came pretty quickly, the first 2 or 3. Mm-hmm. The other thing was we went with Chris on Thursday night to see it, and as we were walking out, you had this line of people and then a line of ushers, and Chris looks over and is like, "Yep, motherfucker."
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
He's screwing these ushers, man.
Because they have to sit there and see. And the main thing is now I don't think these would be such a big problem if movie theaters weren't sort of, for whatever reason, they feel like they need to strap their number of employees really far down to the bone now. Mm-hmm. And that means less and less people to actually take care of. Remember when we were at Hollywood 27? Yeah. I would be an usher manager and I would have 16 people.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And now they have like
just
3.
for ushers.
Yeah.
And then as I left movie theaters and had to be an usher manager again, I would have 3 ushers. And that's a 27 screen place.
Yeah.
And we're not terribly busy, but though it's not like you have lots of time. So if you have a bunch of movies, you have a big movie and they're all like everywhere in the theater.
It's a lot of walking.
You have to go. You have to give those guys breaks. You have to, once you give somebody a break, now you're down to 2 ushers. Then like somebody comes out of the bathroom and says it's a complete mess in there, and you have to dedicate resources to that.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be fine with these credit sequences if we were in the day and age where all theaters could have that carte blanche type of thing, but
or if the theaters would just put more pad time between the shows, which they can't do because they need to maximize every single screen with as many shows as possible.
A lot of times, especially with Disney, they're going to give you mandatory show time where you have to, you have to show it at this certain time.
The studios do that?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Those are the
provision of accepting it?
Yeah. Yeah, those are the so-called mandatory show times, although for most movies you don't have those. It's just usually very big, and the mandatory showtimes suck a ton because there's some theaters that would benefit by scheduling later than the mandatory showtime because there's theaters that are 10 miles, 20 miles down. They're just far enough away to be able to keep the same movie as that theater that's 10, 15 miles away. Mm-hmm. And but that first theater is going to get more people, and if they sell out, then that overflow can go to the other theater. That if they could schedule it late. And I remember, I'll never forget going to a training class, and somebody from like Minnesota was like, yeah, there's a theater that's down the street from us, so we would benefit a whole bunch by being able to just put 30 minutes extra on our show times, and all their overflow would come over to us. And the corporate guy was just like, well, we've done the studies and we're okay with the loss that your theater goes through in order to get all the gain we get from the other theaters.
Wow.
So screw you.
Yeah, screw you.
But yeah, that's the thing. If we were living in the day and age like back in 1999 where I had 16 ushers under me, wouldn't have a problem with all that, because you could put people in, and other people can go clean the smaller auditoriums that don't have very many people in them.
Especially if one of them was Kenneth.
Yeah,
Kenneth?
I do.
He was not liked by everybody because he was kind of a hard ass, but he worked harder than maybe any other usher we ever had at that theater.
Nice.
Of course, he was a grown man too. He had some work ethic. Most of the ushers are 15-year-olds with snotty noses.
But yeah. Nowadays it's just it's ridiculous. It's actually something that hurts movie theaters, I think.
Yeah.
Because now they have to sit there and wait outside while all this bullshit happens that's not even worth your time.
Yeah.
And then they have to go in and clean what is going to be an awful
mess.
Yeah. And it's going to take up all their time while other theaters are getting out.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, a lot of these theaters may not have that many people in them, but you'll be surprised. Sometimes, like a theater with 8 people in it, 500 popcorn bags are in there. Popcorn are everywhere.
I mean,
order 3 bags of pizza.
There's such a line here, because people don't do that at fast food restaurants. Not where they have the trash cans to dump and put your own tray on top. Imagine walking into Chick-fil-A, it's empty, there's no customers, but you can't find a seat because no one took the trash away.
Yeah.
And Chick-fil-A has to find an employee to go out there and clean all the tables. But when they get into a movie, and I guarantee you it's because it's dark, people just turn into fucking pigs.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, I'll never understand that too. And I think I even heard Jerry Seinfeld in a stand-up say something like, it's like, no, I paid $12 to get in this movie. You pick it up. I'm like, fuck you, Jerry Seinfeld. All right, let's go do some questions.
Yeah, baby.
Question. I got something to say. I want the truth.
I'm listening.
All right. What are your favorite instances of actors acting well as bad actors? Love this question.
Yeah, it's a fun one.
The immediate thought was for this listener was Ben Stiller in Tropic Thunder.
Yeah.
Great.
Yes. Awesome.
Simple Jack and Dick Shawn in The Producers. Very, very good.
Yeah.
Those are both good.
Yeah. What do you think?
Oh, well, okay. I'm going to go with friend of the show, Derek Jacobi.
Yes.
From an episode of Frasier. Now, it's a Frasier staple for Niles and Frasier to get a big grand idea and then quickly get in over their heads. They opened a restaurant once. They've screwed up a bunch of stuff like this. But in this one, he's trying to get some comic books for his son, so he's at a sci-fi convention, and he sees Jackson Headley, his favorite actor, who, when Niles and Frasier were teens, they saw this guy do a series of Shakespeare monologues, and it turned them on to Shakespeare. And then after that, he got cast in a Star Trek spoof. In real life, it's a spoof, but on the show, it was like a Star Trek type show. And so now he's been typecast, and all he can play is the weird speaking alien on sci-fi shows, and he goes to these conventions, and they see him there, and they're just heartbroken that this great stage Shakespearean actor has been reduced to this. And so they basically, what if we rented a theater and had him put his show on again, and he could revive his stage career? And so they talk to him, and he's down, and they rent the theater, they find the money, and when they walk in there with him to show him the stage he'll be performing on, they decide to have him do a little bit. So he does this little bit where Hamlet's, I think it's actually right before he dies, but he's mourning Horatio. But anyway, the gist of the scene is that he's a terrible actor. And he comes out and he's like, "Oh, Horatio!" Like he gasps air in between every single line. And they look at each other with these horrified looks. They finally find a tape of the performance they saw as teens, and he's just as bad then. They were just teenagers and didn't know any better. The rest of the episode is them trying to get the show canceled without telling him he's a bad actor. They try and get the fire marshal to shut it down for too many people. They try to set off the sprinklers. He breaks his leg, and they're like, yes, we're going to get out of it. And he comes out limping to do his monologue. And in the end, they just have to resign themselves that they've backed a terrible actor's performance. And of course, Derek Jacobi is famous for stage work in his career, so he's almost parodying himself here, which is big of him. It's a really funny episode, but I also just love that. That's like a way to emote. It's so freaking funny. Anyway, that's my answer.
Derek Jacobi.
Oh, yeah.
I got one that I'm trying to figure out. It's definitely a great actor imagining a terrible performance, but I don't know if it's acting badly. Martin Landau and Ed Wood as Bela Lugosi.
Yeah.
It's interesting. In the context of the movie Ed Wood, he's terrific.
Yep.
But in the context of Plan 9 from Outer Space, he's terrible.
Yep.
So I think that's probably my favorite example of this.
That's a good one.
Because, he's obviously so great and he's such a broken down performer and everything, and he's trying to do it. But it's just compelling to watch. And it had to be like several layers that Martin Landau had to navigate with all that stuff. It did awesome.
That's a good one right there.
He was at least Oscar nominated if he didn't win.
He won. That was the one Samuel Jackson said, shit! After Martin Landau
which was
won.
announced by Anna Paquin, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Think so.
Who at the time was 7.5?
Yeah, she was the
She was
piano.
very young. Yeah, I think she was like a 12 at that point.
Was she?
Yeah, she was 11 when she won, I think.
Oh, okay. I thought she was 6.
But
I
she,
don't know why.
well, when she wins, she seems like 7 because she's, I mean, I can't imagine, that age winning an Oscar and having to talk. And what's so funny about the thing, though, is when she wins, she goes up there and she's like, and she's got this look on her face. You're like, oh my God, she's going to have a hard time coming out with this speech. And then all of a sudden she's like, I'd like to thank the Academy. And I just went, just turned it on.
I was on the acting.
That's right. I'm going to go with Julianne Moore and Mark Wahlberg in Boogie Nights.
Oh,
wow.
That's an awesome pick.
I love this because it's difficult to act bad in a realistic way.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that scene is so funny to me because Wahlberg comes in, he's like, I was away and there was no women at all and where I was. and Julianne Moore's like, that's terrible. And,
is that their first scene together?
Yeah,
their first porn scene?
Yeah.
I love the pan across everybody's faces when he takes his dick out. Because you don't see it, but you see like the lighting guy and the mic guy and the camera guy all like, oh my God.
And she's, and that just ridiculous line because they're just going through the motions to get to the sex scene and everything. It's like, I think you have the job, but let me be sure of something. This is a giant cock.
I need to watch that movie again.
I remember when the movie came out, they asked her about how do you act that way. How do you perfectly act like somebody who's like in a porno or whatever? And she says, when you watch these things, the thing that comes out of their performance is that they have no affect to what they're saying and everything. Yeah. So you have to sort of pretend to
just take that away.
Yeah, just take that away. So
all right. Hey, do you guys get sponsored to do specific videos about movies that have actors in them that are in upcoming movies, or do you just choose to do videos on these specific movies because the actors are relevant?
I fucking wish.
Does the ad team reach out to you at all? I think it's an interesting thing to let people know about.
Okay, I will say this. There was one production company for one film that flirted with some kind of an arrangement where we would make a video about one of their other films timed for this new film's release. It never panned out, but even that might have just kind of been a little exaggerated to us as to how close that actually came.
Yeah.
But no one's paying us to make these videos.
Yeah.
YouTube gives us some money after they run some ads on them. We just pick, Chris does the schedule, he does it very well, but we pick movies to sin as often as possible that are tied to something that's coming out soon. So there's a new King Arthur movie this weekend, right? Or next weekend.
Yeah, it's this weekend.
And we just did King Arthur today, the previous King Arthur. And we actually wrestled on the podcast with whether to do Sword in the Stone or Excalibur or one of these. We chose King Arthur, but there's a reason for that. And another question I get a lot is if we conspire with how it should have ended in Screen Junkies, because we'll often put out videos on the same movie the same week. And it's we're just all using the same logic. People are thinking and talking and Googling more about King Arthur right now. Let's do King Arthur. It's just basic math.
Yeah.
And so but no, I would love it if they'd pay us to do it in addition to us just doing it.
I think that's the sort of the hidden thing out of running a YouTube channel that people don't really understand a lot of times is why is it called Everything Wrong With? Well, it's because that is the kind of title that catches people's eye.
Right.
More than anything. It may not be literally everything wrong with like a lot of people think it's supposed to be or whatever, but it's more about catching your eye. You have to do some business type things when you're running a YouTube channel. And when we were writing for Real SEO, one of the things that came up was that YouTube creator handbook.
Yeah.
And one of the chapters was talking about tent polling, which is one of the, I mean, I wrote about every one of these chapters that's in the handbook. Yeah. And I tell you right now, we probably followed every single one of them in some way. We didn't like have it open or something.
Right.
But
let me consult the handbook.
Right. But they tell you little fun things like you got to catch the viewer's eye in the first 5 seconds or they're gone. And here's how Philip DeFranco does it and blah, blah, blah. And then, but yeah, tent polling was one of the big ones. It was like seventh or eighth chapter in there or whatever was about tent polling. Basically, you're talking about you're coming out with something that everybody's talking about and that, and in this case, a movie release schedule is as close to tent polling as you can get.
Did you see that Philip DeFranco's starting a new news channel that he intends to be unbiased? Because when I saw that video, I could not stop laughing.
Oh, really?
Because humans are inherently biased. He has this whole video. I like Philip DeFranco a lot. He has this whole video announcing it, basically saying, here we are in this age where all of our news is so skewed. Like Fox News skews to the right, this news skews to the left. And why can't we have a source that examines both sides of an issue before coming to any conclusions or whatnot? And I'm just like, wow, dude, nice guy. That's an impossible goal. Yeah. And you are just as biased as any other news reader just because you say you're going to examine it from both sides. Like, okay, John Oliver. I love John Oliver. John Oliver presents a show that suggests he examines the facts from both sides, but John Oliver's liberal as hell. Like he's not trying to appeal to conservatives and what they think. And yeah, he would rip on Obama, and now he rips on Trump. He's an equal opportunity jokester. But I mean, his politics are pretty clear. Yeah. Nobody is unbiased. Yeah. Everyone looks through their own lens to see their worldview, and the idea of creating some kind of unbiased news source is just, it's laughable to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
Maybe AI can do it.
I agree with you in some instance of that, because it is very hard for people to just be able to like throw out their beliefs and everything. And even if they're not liberal or conservative or whatever, they have some other kind of, worldview that's going to skew whatever they say or whatever. I do like the idea though of at least trying, because there are most of where we get our news doesn't try.
Well, and this is what I've always told my wife when we talk about political issues is you've got to do your work before you draw an opinion. You've got to go out and find news from 5 different sources about the same story to kind of get all the angles and then figure out where you fall in that. You can't just get all your news from one source if you want to be unbiased. And so that's why it's silly to me that one source wants to feed me unbiased. I may add Philip DeFranco's news channel as one of the 7 sources I check on something before I draw conclusions. But I agree with you. I think there's something nice about trying, and there's certainly no harm in it. I just don't think it's an achievable goal.
And the other thing is, and maybe I'm completely wrong about this, but the being completely unbiased and everything seems to be a bit of a liberal goal.
No, absolutely. That's kind of agreeing with you.
And
it
so
kind of goes hand in hand with the philosophy, right?
It kind of it's kind of difficult to do that. I mean, I think if you look at both sides and everything, how are you going to end up weighing those different facts on whatever? You're either going to agree with one side or the other. You know, I think.
Look at the Bible. The words that are in the Bible are there.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. And yet we have dozens of denominations, various religions. Within the denominations, we have splits, and it's all because interpretation.
Yep.
If two people can read the same sentence and come away thinking it means different things, then there is no unbiased anything. There's no unfiltered source of pure truth in the universe.
Fucking Martin Luther.
Now I wait for the ignorant people to come and call you racist who don't know which Martin Luther you're talking about.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, of course
we have an educated audience.
The story there is that, that the Catholic Church said that they were the only people who were able to read the Bible and interpret it, and he believed that the common people should be able to. And of course, by the time the common people started reading it, there was all these different interpretations, and that's why Lutherans and all that started becoming a thing, and a bunch of other religions. But Martin Luther.
Even from John Wesley, one of the great theological thinkers, you've got multiple denominations sprung from, because you've got the Methodists go back to him, the Nazarenes do, the Wesleyans do, and so that's sort of my example. Like, two people can witness the same car accident and tell the cop different stories about what happened.
Yeah.
Do we have another question, or is there waiting on an answer?
Yeah, man. All right. What are some good examples of films you liked or seriously disliked that relied heavily on unique visual styling through filter effects or world design? The examples given were Scanner Darkly, The Matrix, or Oz the Great and Powerful, which
aren't those two of those Keanu movies? Isn't he in A Scanner Darkly?
Yes, he is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I actually would put The Waking Life or Scanner Darkly as one of my answers here.
As the one that you liked or disliked?
I didn't. It was too distracting.
The rotoscope thing?
I can appreciate what he's trying to do from an artistic standpoint, but as a movie lover, I couldn't connect to the characters as well. I couldn't connect to the story as well. It was just a little too much. It was a little too distracting for me.
There's deep themes in the way that it's weird because Richard Linklater can do such humanistic stories like Boyhood and Before Sunrise, Sunset, and all that stuff. But this is where it got it just got deep.
It did.
And I think it depends on the state that you watch that, whether you really want to pay attention to a movie or whether you just kind of want to watch something.
Man, if I'd had some drugs and then watched it, it might be a different story.
Oh, yeah. No, that is a very...
Now, for one that relied heavily, I'm kind of cheating here, but for the one that I ended up liking, it's really only one scene in the movie. It's Prince of Egypt, when they do that moment where the hieroglyphics on the wall come to life and tell this backstory.
Yeah.
And I remember being really wowed by that when I saw it, because I'd never seen anything like that from a visual animation standpoint, and I felt like it added a lot to the film, and I think it brought the film up in esteem in my mind because of that one section. Anyway, so there you go.
It's a good pick.
I'm going to say, as far as I liked, is Pleasantville.
Nice.
Oh, good call.
Pleasantville has it's color, then it goes to black and white when they go to the 50s or whatever, and then as people start experiencing emotions and everything, it goes to color. It's a really sort of an underseen movie that came out in 1998.
Lots of people in it too.
Yeah, a lot of people. Just a ton of people. And William H. Macy, Joan Allen, Tobey Maguire, Reese Witherspoon.
J.T. Walsh, right?
Yeah, J.T. Walsh. There's probably a ton of people who became something later that I'm not even remembering right now. But I remember when it came out, I think people were a little lukewarm about that movie.
Yeah.
But I think over time, I've heard a lot of people say they love it.
It's really good. Great soundtrack, too.
Where's my dinner?
Where's my dinner? The one that, this is like an all-timer one I hate as far as visuals are concerned, is Sin City.
Oh, yeah. Good call.
Man, I'll never forget that I remember being so excited for that movie. Trailer was great. Trailer for Sin City was amazing. I was like, I can't wait to see this movie. It's going to be so great. And part of it was that, but I saw it later on and I was like, yeah, that wasn't very good. But it is so about its visuals that I don't really think there's anything to really sink your teeth into. It's trying to be kind of a Pulp Fiction for comics, comic book adaptations or whatever, and that's probably the Frank Miller influence on it and everything. But because he even gets a directorial credit in this movie, so does Tarantino. But there's just nothing in that movie that makes me go. But I'll never forget me and a friend at the theater when that came out. Like, it's like, the first time I watched it, I hated it. And now that I think about it more, I hate it even more. It's so boring, it's so boring. And then there's some unique, weird, crazy touches in it and everything. But ultimately, it's just a boring ass movie.
Yeah, I agree. That was a good pick.
I'm going to follow up on your 1998 Pleasantville and do two other 1998 movies.
Oh.
So the one that I like and the one that I don't know, I've seen people try to do it since, but I don't think they've achieved it, is Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Oh.
Yeah.
The way that Hunter S. Thompson wrote this book is so weird and is so filtered through his drug view that I would think it's impossible to film. And you need everything to go right. You need a Benicio del Toro and you need a Johnny Depp at the height of their weirdness to go all in. And of course, Johnny Depp ended up staying with Hunter Thompson, like in his basement, next to like a barrel of TNT or something like that. So they really got into the role. But then Terry Gilliam from Monty Python fame came in and shot this thing with these great visuals. Like he was able to bend reality into what these hallucinations were like, and then keep that into to like an actual reality. It's very, very cool.
I had a friend who loved that movie, and he would tell me all the time, and I used to say, let me ask you a question. You ever watch this movie without smoking weed first? He's like, probably not. I'm like, all right, that's what I thought.
Oh, see, now I don't know if I've ever watched it like not sober.
I watched it sober and it was hard to get through.
Oh yeah, well it's a unique movie, but
I've
I
watched
loved
it a couple of times and I've never been under the influence, and I've liked it. So
yeah, it's
Terry
definitely
Gilliam
fun.
is just he's a crazy ass dude.
He is.
And then another movie from 1998 that relied only on style and is a big old bag of shit is What Dreams May Come.
Oh, yes.
Such a good one.
I forgot all about that movie.
Such a good choice. I remember seeing the trailer for this going, wow, that looks amazing.
I know. Oh, I couldn't wait, man. I was like, oh, this is the afterlife. He can do whatever. He's creating a tree. It's all like paint and everything. He goes to hell.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is fucking Robin Williams and Cuba Gooding Jr. And like, it really should have been something masterful. It is a giant turd. It's awful.
It's a giant flaming turd from hell.
It is a beautiful, it's not like it's ugly or anything like that. It's just that's the only thing that it's got going for it is relying on that visual
kind of like
style.
Prometheus.
Yeah, exactly.
Gorgeous, but not much underneath.
And you and I kind of had the same idea about this is The Cell, 2000s movie,
Yeah.
The Cell, Tarzan Singh. Awesome visuals.
Looks
really,
cool.
really cool. That trailer was fucking amazing, too.
I remember
But then
being
you get
very
into-
excited about The Cell.
The worst thing about The Cell is fucking Vince Vaughn.
I know it. I know it.
Trying to
I know
convince
you're
us
talking
to
about
be-
a movie that has J-Lo in it.
Yeah.
That's saying something.
Oh my God, Vince Vaughn, like trying to be this serious FBI agent or whatever it is, and man, it's awful.
Yeah, Vince Vaughn had a rough go after Swingers, trying to look serious.
He did that domestic disturbance movie with
Yes.
Travolta.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
And he did something with one of the
Psycho
Phoenix
remake.
kids.
Yeah, the Psycho remake. Oh well, he did a couple of things. He did
Clay
Clay
Pigeons.
Pigeons,
Clay
and he
Pigeons.
did Return to Paradise.
Yeah.
There's that weird triangle where you have. This was all in 1998 too.
But he also, the year before, though, he did sneak into the Lost World.
Yep.
Jurassic
But
Park.
in 1998, you had Return to Paradise, which had Anne Heche, Vince Vaughn, and Joaquin Phoenix.
Mm-hmm.
Psycho had Vince Vaughn and Anne Heche.
Yeah.
And Clay Pigeons had Joaquin Phoenix and Vince
Vince
Vaughn.
Vaughn. Yeah. That's weird. Give us a cue, B.
All right. What movie were you the most utterly disappointed by?
Oh, wow.
I'm sorry I got the trump card. Starship Troopers, man. And come at me, folks, with Starship
what
Troopers.
makes you think? All I said was, Bummer Barrett, I like that movie, but you're ready to fight?
I'm not talking about you necessarily, but I have seen so many people online that absolutely love this movie. And I've talked to a lot of people
I don't
that
go
love
that
this
far.
movie. That say it's a genius satire and that the way that Paul Verhoeven does it is perfectly suited to the source material and everything. I understand the source material. I've actually read it a long time ago. it's still a shitty movie.
Have you ever thought about Starship Troopers in this way? That the aliens that we're fighting aren't a bad race. That all the recruitment videos and everything are really just like more of a sort of a pointed look at how countries around the earth like recruit their military. Military.
I mean, I don't think you can deny he's trying to go for some kind of satire. If only for those, do you want to know more? But I mean, I think he had to lie to all of his cast, right? Because I think the only way you get the satire tone right is with actual bad actors.
Yeah.
Like Casper Van Dien, and Jake Busey, and nobody gives Richards. A very good performance in this movie.
Neil Patrick Harris.
There is a thought, though, that through some clues, now maybe this doesn't make the movie great or anything. I don't think it's great, but that we're the ones responsible for this battle even taking place in the first place,
right?
And that they're only just coming to defend themselves. We're going to attack them or whatever. It's kind of got a little bit of Ender's Game in it, a little bit. But I think if you look at the movie kind of like that more than just there's some shitty actors in this.
No,
movie.
that's the only. After the first viewing, when I was expecting something completely different, that's the only way I've looked at it. Is because of the whole obvious propaganda stuff, and then Doogie coming out in like the fascist wardrobe at the very end.
Yeah.
It's scared, fuck
right?
You.
Yeah.
But no, that's how I've interpreted it, is that the humans are. They're
the monsters,
Nazis.
man.
Exactly. And that whole like march to war type of thing, this propaganda and the rah-rah spirit is absolutely the humans being the evil, the oppressors at least. Mm-hmm. And I think it's still a shitty movie.
Yeah.
But that was when I saw the trailer and we were going to see that movie that night. And I was a senior in high school, I guess, something like that. 97?
Yeah, it was 97.
And I was like, I literally said these words: "There's no way that movie's not going to be great." Mm-hmm. That's the only time I've ever said that.
Yeah,
I was so disappointed.
That was
after
the year.
Saying that.
That was the year Sony went all in on sci-fi, because during the summer there was trailers for The Fifth Element, there was Men in Black, and Starship Troopers. All had Starship Troopers came out in November,
and 2 out of the 3 of those were good.
Yep. But anyway, I look at that movie like that and I say, I like that ultimately. However, yes, you have to deal with a lot of Denise Richards and Casper Van Dien and Patrick Muldoon and a lot of these B-list kind of guys. Now, when I was 20, Denise Richards was the best actress on the planet.
I think that's probably true for a lot of people.
And then I saw Wild Things, and it confirmed that.
Give that woman an honorary
Oscar.
Right.
That's right.
Now, when I saw Wild Things, it confirmed how much I liked Kevin Bacon. Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. Totally.
Dick shot.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with, for an older movie, Father's Day.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Now, this should have been, and was at the time, it was just as big a casting coup as De Niro and Pacino in Heat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you had arguably the two biggest, most beloved movie comedians, Billy Crystal and Robin Williams, and you're throwing in Julia Louis-Dreyfus from Seinfeld.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't have had to even have a script to make something funny. Maybe the problem is that they did have a script, and that's why it's not funny. It's terrible. It's not funny. There are very few laughs. I just don't even know why you bother bringing together heavy hitters. It's like Righteous Kill. Yeah. Why do you bother bringing in these heavy hitters, but you don't put any attention into the actual story or the script?
Yeah,
I
think they probably thought that because they had these two guys, everything was going to be okay. They even got Ivan Reitman to direct it.
Yeah.
And the writing team of Lowell Gans and Babaloo Mandel. I completely did not make that up. Those were the
I thought I was supposed to know who that was.
Well, they were the go-to comedy writer guys back in the 90s. Like most of your comedies back in the 90s had their names on it, or at least they polished it up or whatever. They were like go-to guys. Now, I guarantee you, if I go and click on their names, there's going to be a load of terrible movies. But I think they came up with some good ones. Parenthood, A League of Their Own.
Parenthood's good.
City Slickers 2. I mean, they did a lot of, good stuff. They did some bad stuff, but they were like a go-to comedy team, man. So you had that, you had Ivan Reitman, you had Billy Crystal and Robin Williams, and yes, you watched that movie, and I was like,
what the hell? Yeah,
that was also a weird projection thing for me. Most of the movies back then that were comedies were in flat. There were the 1.85 to 1 ratio and everything, and like usually if it was a scope, that meant there was a lot of like amazing cinematography that was going to go in. Nowadays, it doesn't really matter, but Father's Day was a scope movie.
Oh, weird.
And I was like, that was a really odd choice for a comedy to be just a scope movie for no reason. 2, 3, 5 to 1. But that was definitely just it was a piece of shit.
Yeah, totally.
Mine is a pretty obvious one, although I'm going to throw in 2 honorable mentions, and they're all comic book adaptations. Spider-Man 3.
Oh yeah, that was a
Yes.
disappointment.
Yeah,
I think Spider-Man 3, you have to add a lot of things to that as far as my disappointment was concerned, because I was actually at that premiere. I've noted this before. I was at that premiere, and I remember being so excited about it because the first 2 were great. And this third one, I thought, Sam Raimi can do no wrong. He can't do any wrong except for love of the game. He can't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I was ready for it, and and then I started seeing people filing out of that auditorium, and people kind of like mumble. I was like, oh, it can't be that bad, right? And then I watched it. I watched it at like 1:30 that night, 1:30 in the morning. Watched it
after the premiere.
After the premiere, because they, they're like, oh, you can watch it now for free if you want to. Like, of course we can. We watched it, and it's like 4:00 by the time I'm getting out of there. But I've seen Spider-Man 3 a couple times since. And
it gets worse every time.
Oh, it was so disappointing, disappointing. The other 2, along the same lines. I think. Both of these other movies went under the same problems: Age of Ultron and Dark Knight Rises.
I could not agree more.
Yeah,
both of those. I think all 3 of those movies are poster children for studios interfering and in saying we got to have all of this in here, or whatever. And instead of like just let's make a simple story, it's got to be bigger, it's got to be better, it's got to be louder.
Fucking Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah,
I went to see with my father-in-law in Chicago. I was like, man. I was legitimately psyched for that movie. I mean,
me
you come
too.
off of Dark Knight. You had the whole snafu with the Rotten Tomatoes fanboys that were getting on there and putting death threats to people who had given it a negative review. And I was like, okay, looks really good. Got done with it, and I didn't immediately just like hate it. I just immediately was disappointed. And as we're walking out, my father-in-law was, well, that fucking sucked.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, well, here we go.
I mean, of course, we'll never know what that movie would have been like, had Heath Ledger, not died. But, you go back to that whole thing with studios where we got to have this movie within this many years of the last one coming out, and we got to come out with it hell or high water, by God. And, so they didn't have it. I don't think they have time on these movies ever. When they Age of Ultron, we got to stick all this bullshit in there.
Yeah.
Be sure to stick all the bullshit in there.
Make sure to put the Thor scene at the pool.
Put the Thor in there, and let's crush Joss Whedon's soul. And
although now he's talking about making a Batgirl movie.
I could get behind that.
Oh, me too. I think he's the perfect person.
That's
for
DC though. So,
Yeah,
DC's way
jumping over.
more progressive than Marvel.
But if you filter everybody's complaints about the DC universe right now, and you try to boil down the single most common complaint, it's that they're too serious.
Yep.
And who better to bring some joviality to the universe than fucking Joss Whedon? Man, I would eat it up. I'm ready.
Which movie character would you want as a best friend? For example, mine would be John Leguizamo as Martin in Chef. That is a great suggestion, by the way.
That is a good one.
Anybody willing to give out their dream job to follow me around in a food truck seems like the best kind of friend. I think that's awesome. So who would be your best friend? And I'll start. I love Jay from Clerks. Right? Because he talks all the time. He's funny as shit. He's got all the drugs. He's out there like, going to parties and everything. You don't have to say shit. You just have to like follow him along and enjoy the ride and everything and just kind of hang out and be like Silent Bob. It takes all the pressure off of you. And, you maybe get like a little filtration effect from the girls that don't want to get with Jay. They come your way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Not bad. I got one.
Okay.
I want Matthew McConaughey from Tropic Thunder. Because he's truly all about Tug Speedman. His phone ring when Tug calls is sometimes when we touch. And he gets angry on Tug's behalf. He flies all the way out to fucking Vietnam or Laos, wherever, to throw the TiVo in the way of the rocket. Like, he's totally a sacrificial friend who cares deeply about his client/friend. That's who I would choose, because he's just all in.
That's awesome. That's a great pick.
Interesting. Let's see. I'm running through the gamut of all the movies I know.
That could take a while.
Yeah. Just trying to come up with something quick. Like, I was sitting there thinking, well, maybe Bill Murray in Lost in Translation, but I don't know if he would be a great friend, actually.
He seems kind of all in for himself.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Dazed and Confused pops into my head.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a lot of people in there, like the group in the car with that's got Marissa Ribisi and it's got Adam Goldberg, but those group of friends seem like really like those would be my people basically.
Mm-hmm.
They're the nerdy group. They're the nerdy group, and like I love that whole I love that whole thing where Adam Goldberg's going through his whole thing like. It's like, I was going to try to help people and everything, but now I realize I don't really like people. I really don't like them at all and everything. And I say, I guess I'm just being okay with being a misanthrope. It's like everything. So it's like, well, what do you want to do? And he goes, I want to dance. And there's that whole thing with him too, where he runs into Clint, at the party and Clint is like, this asshole, like, just because you run into him, that's got to be a reason for a fight and everything. But he comes up to his friends and he's like, no, I figured it out. I want to punch him. And then, there's a sort of a thing where everybody doesn't want to upset the herd. So I figure I get one punch in and then everybody will come in, they'll break up the fight and everything. And he actually goes and punches him because of that logic and everything. So yeah, those guys, I think that was
Nice.
Good answer.
Good, yeah. All right, last one. We'll wrap it up with this. I am starting a summer job at my local movie theater, and I was wondering if there's any advice you could give me or any other newly hired movie theater employee to not get fired.
Oh, to not get fired. I was about to tell you, don't go into movie theaters.
All right. Well, let me answer this circularly.
All right.
Depending on what chain you're working for, it's a lot harder to get fired than you might think it is. Because
That's true.
The company does not want to get sued for wrongful termination.
Uh-huh.
And so the process to fire you at a place like Regal where we worked, you have to commit several violations of a certain seriousness inside of a year.
Mm-hmm.
So if your drawer comes up short by $10 or whatever, they're not going to fire you. They're going to give you a verbal warning. Hey, your drawer was short. Count better next time. If your drawer is short again in 6 months, they're going to write you a written warning.
Mm-hmm.
You still have like one more after that before they're even going to think about suspending you and asking HR if they're allowed to fire you.
Wow. And you got $20.
Even thieves, all right? So I'm going to tell a story without names. We had a guy steal $900 from the box office of Hollywood while selling tickets, and we had it on camera. Now, the manager at the time, much to her detriment, had a reputation for telling employees she had them on camera when she didn't.
Oh.
As an intimidation way to get them to resign, because it's easier to accept a resignation than to fire someone in this company. This guy didn't blink.
Mm-hmm.
And when I circled back to check on it later, I ended up changing to a different theater and then came back and talked to somebody, and they never ended up prosecuting him because it just wasn't worth the money to send a high-priced lawyer down to court for a couple of hours trying to get $900 back. And they were able to terminate him because of the video evidence or what have you, but the law never took it any further than that.
Wow.
And so I say that to say, short of general crimes, murder, stabbing, what have you, Takes a lot of work to get fired from a movie theater.
It
Just
does,
enjoy the popcorn.
man. I knew when I was in New York, there was a manager of a really big theater out there who like threatened some customer's life or some crap like that. I'm probably embellishing it, but it was one of those type of things. They got in an argument and it was like, some sort of like, I'm going to kill you type of thing. But whatever. And all they did to her was like, now you're going to be an assistant manager at another theater.
Yeah. Transfer you.
Yeah. But yeah, that's funny. There were a lot of things that people did that I was like you're going to be immediately fired, and they didn't get fired. And then there were times where there was like people stole hot dog buns and they got fired.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, honestly, there's a lot. It really depends on how edgy your manager is, I guess. Yeah, you do have to go through the written stepped process and everything to get fired. I only got written up one time, and it was complete bullshit, by the way. Still,
that's funny because you could have been written up for legitimate things.
I could have been,
but you just weren't.
Yeah, I could have been. But like, yeah, it was. You have to go through all this process to get you fired and everything, and yeah, you have to do some really. I mean, I dealt with some people who were horrible at their jobs and everything, and they'd get written up, but they'd always get written up just enough not to get, because after a year it's done.
Yep. Wow. Yep. So you're probably not going to get fired over summer. So you
don't
should relax
steal
and
from
enjoy.
a theater.
Yeah,
and you're probably going to be okay.
Don't steal. Don't do.
Watch free movies. Eat free popcorn.
There's some real common sense things in there that like. And I don't want to like totally shit on working at a movie theater. Like when I was 16, it was the best thing in the world.
Yeah,
it was awesome. It was when I look back at my age 16 and going to a movie theater, it was the best. Yeah. Watching movies for free and even like just working with other people and everything and learning, just getting new friends and everything. Exciting. But yeah. And once you can make it a career, it's awful. All right. That'll do it for the SinCast this week. Hopefully you love our choice. I love our choice.
Yeah, me too.
I guess tell us what you think you would have picked out of this whole group and everything. Go to SoundCloud and give us your thoughts.
Yeah. We had a flurry, you may say a blizzard of comments on our last episode. Maybe some of the most comments that we've had ever. A lot of them were angry.
Yeah, because we picked against their movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It's probably going to be even more on this episode.
But let us know. It's fine. You could, if you need to vent somewhere, vent to us. Yeah, we know it's all from love.
Yeah. I mean, did we have a lot of Schindler's List fallout?
Not a lot.
No, in fact, the ones I saw mourning Schindler's List passing were kind of laughing about it, like, "Oh no, poor Oscar," like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what was it? Jaws? Then what was the big one? What was the one that everybody?
Back to the Future, The Matrix. Back to the Future, The
Matrix was a big one. Some people think that Pulp Fiction is overrated.
It probably is. Like, you know what? Here's the thing: almost all these movies that we've talked about are overrated.
Probably.
That's the thing. Once it gets to a certain level, like we were talking about the legendary status of these movies. Once it becomes a legend, it's overrated because, I always compare it to stuff like our sports heroes. Like we talk about Willie Mays and Hank Aaron and all them in the back, Mickey Mantle, all these people. That like they never struck out, did they? They never struck out once. They all they did was hit homers.
Yeah.
That's how much we've got them built up in there.
Exactly.
That's the same thing with movies, guys.
Yeah.
Like movies, Jaws and all these. They are great. They're as perfect as it gets. But in a format like this, sometimes you're gonna have to go down.
It's gonna be carnage.
That's right.
But yeah, keep commenting. We love it.
That's right. All right. That'll do it for this week. Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, and Barrett Shearer. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit cinemasins.com.
I love her voice.
Yeah.
It's just the right amount of manly.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Lucinda Williams?
Huh?
Do you like Lucinda Williams?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, she's
I'm
got the same.
I'm gonna go to Slidell and look for my joy. They took my joy. I want it back. That song?
Yeah.
So I just spent 5 days with my wife, my brother and his family, and my mom and dad at the Disney World Animal Kingdom Resort. We went to all the parks. We visited about half the other resorts just for dinners at fancy restaurants. Not one piece of Wreck-It Ralph merchandise anywhere I saw.
What?
Not one. Now, I'm sure someone's going to come on and go, I work at Disney and we sell Wreck-It Ralph in this store up in the back corner of this
Squeaky
park.
voice
and
team
yada,
from
yada.
The Simpsons.
I'm just telling you, my wife and my mom love to fucking shop. And we went into every shop we saw. And I never saw one piece of Wreck-It Ralph merchandise anywhere.
That doesn't make sense.
And I'll tell you why.
That doesn't make any sense.
Because they're stupid. But also, they front load all of their merchandise shops with films that have sequels coming up.
Oh, yeah.
So it was pirate shit everywhere, Guardian shit everywhere, Cars shit everywhere. But still, you know how much Wreck-It Ralph shit I would have bought if they'd have had anything?
Yeah.
A shirt, a figure, something? No. I didn't see anything anywhere.
There's that massive store in downtown Disney that is like all things Disney that
That's
you can
the
find
only...
like
we didn't go
Song
to
of the South shit.
Yeah, we didn't go to downtown Disney. That's the only place we didn't go.
Oh, really?
Like they call it Disney Springs now. But
Oh, really?
Yes. But anyway, I was so disappointed with all the parks and all the resorts. You couldn't find one little shop to squirrel away some Wreck-It Ralph gear. You got a sequel coming? You
Yeah, I
greenlit
know.
it.
They didn't
The
have a
sequel
Wreck-It
isn't
Ralph.
coming soon, though. It was
Yeah, it's like
announced
next year.
But yeah, I mean, you should have some Wreck-It Ralph. You should at least have a keychain in there. You know, I was like,
the only thing.
something that you could press the button and it's like, rocket, you know, something like that.
I expected to see the actual Wreck-It Ralph video game console from the movie.
Yeah,
you could
yeah.
play somewhere or something. No,
Or at least the character where you can get an autograph.
Yeah, no.
I mean, they had weird shit. They had like Jake and the Neverland Pirates.
I'll tell you what, that's some weird shit, though. We were walking through the Animal Kingdom, and there's a guy dressed up in a Bug's Life costume, like he's the main character from Bug's Life. And there's a line of like 50 people to get his autograph.
Wow.
And I'm like, you're going to get a sunburn to have some jamoke in a suit sign your... I mean, he probably smells like ashtray and is going to have a six-pack when he gets off work. You don't know who's in there. It's just a costume.
You can imagine what those things, those helmets smell like.
I know. I mean...
You imagine like a guy at the bowling alley like that sprays out the shoes. Like he's got to do that with the helmet.
At least the ones that are like characters that don't have helmets, like Cinderella or Mary Poppins, that looks like the character and little kids. I get that.
Yeah.
But hey, let's have this guy in a suit sign your shit. We went to one of the places we ate is at the Swan and Dolphin Hotel.
Oh, that place is awesome.
It is awesome. And they have a character restaurant where you're guaranteed to have 2 Disney characters come in during your dining experience and, you know, pose with your kids for pictures.
Is it like Jackrabbit Slims?
Well, sort of. But like I'm sitting there and I'm enjoying my prime rib. I'm eating. I don't want this. And yet fucking what's Mickey's dog's name? Pluto. Pluto walks up.
Yeah.
And he holds his hand up for a high five from me. The first guy, there's 3 children at this table. And he comes to me first. And I was like, hey, it's cool. The kids are down there. And he just hangs his hand out there until I give him fucking 5. And I'm like, I should never book this dinner. Anyway, my point is my niece and nephew got his autograph.
Uh-huh.
Guy in a smelly suit.
Yeah.
I mean, for all you know, that's a sex offender. Now, he probably wouldn't hire a sex offender to do that. Cut that part out. Anyway, no Wreck-It Ralph shit
He's
in Disney.
probably the Goofy that's there, and like you say, he's a sex offender, and it's like, you know, like, okay,
This opens up an
defamation.
investigation.
Yeah,
I'm just saying, you don't know. You don't know. You
Yeah.
know who's in there.
that's true. I was the other day. Somebody was talking about what was it? I think it was at your party, Barrett. We were talking about how much Disney's making with all these movies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've got Marvel, they've got their animation, they've got Star Wars and all that. I think it was the first time I really sort of sat back and considered how much money they're probably making with all the merchandise.
This is, I mean, my experience the last 5 days blew my mind. Like, I even told my wife, I don't even know why they bother making movies. They're making so much money at these resorts, hand over fist.
Oh,
because now when you check in, if you're staying on the property at one of the resort hotels, you get a magic band.
Yep.
And it's RFID chip enabled. So and you use that as your room key. They don't give you a proper room key. You use that as your park admittance, and you can fucking pay for shit anywhere on the resort property or park property, but just holding your wrist up to the thing. And it's so easy to just bink, charge all this shit to your room, and everything's so expensive.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how much money they're making, and it's a small country down there in terms of the operation itself. I was super impressed, actually. But they're making a killing on those parks. I actually read an article while I was down there that their annual report or their quarterly report came in. Park revenue and movie revenue are both up 20 and 21%. So yes, they're making bank down at Disney.
They're making they're making billions of dollars worldwide on almost every movie they release. Like Beauty and the Beast the other day, I was looking at that. I was like,
yeah, right.
I was like sitting there going, this is in the top 10 of all time.
Yeah.
How'd that happen?
And domestic, it's over like 500, 600 million or something like that.
It's about
amount. 500
right now.
Wow.
Wait, let me look at this real quick because it was. I think I looked at it and it was actually in the top 10 domestic, but it could be just worldwide.
Jesus.
It was that. It
Well,
was
I know
at
it went over $1 billion worldwide pretty quick.
Yeah.
Prestige worldwide.
And now they're probably going to make some bullshit never existed before sequel about how he gets beasted again, or maybe Belle will turn into the Beast this time.
Beasted too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was a movie called Beastly. They're going to have to like pay CBS Films some money for that one. Yeah, Beauty and the Beast is number 8 all time. Now, obviously, these figures don't mean as much as they used to when you get in the top 10 anymore. Because now if you get a movie that's anyway halfway decent that people want to go see, then it's going to shoot up into that 488 million. But yeah, you look at it now, the top 10 is filled with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 movies that have come out in the last 8 years.
Wow.
Huh.
Is Avatar still number 1?
No, Force Awakens.
Oh, wow.
Force Awakens handily beat it too. Like it was crazy how much it beat it.
What is it up to now?
The Force Awakens.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Force Awakens made $936 million when it came out.
Yeah.
This Last Jedi movie will not make that at all. There's no way it's going to make that
Because it doesn't have the build-up.
It doesn't have the build-up. It's not going to have the same configuration because Force Awakens came out. It had like this amazing, it was almost 3 weeks of holiday, basically.
Yeah, because it was right before Christmas, right?
It was right before Christmas. Then it got Christmas, and then it, the way New Year's fell and everything, people weren't getting back to school until, the following week. So it had, an extra week in there, and it made most of its money there, too. It was $600-700 million right there.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And then it made an extra $232 million.
Well, The Last Jedi has a better director, so might be a better movie. Might not make as much money.
Yeah.
Rian Johnson is a better director than J.J. Abrams?
Hands down.
Really?
I like J.J. Abrams. I really do. I just think he's consistently B+, A-, and Rian Johnson's got A+ potential all through his resume.
All right, Looper, he did
Brick.
He did Brick.
He did the 2 best episodes of Breaking Bad, in my opinion.
Yeah, Ozymandias and the
Fly.
The Fly. Oh, yeah.
And there's another one he did back in the Brick era that I watched that was great. I don't remember the name of it. Everything I've seen that he directed was great.
I don't know, man. J.J. Abrams is good.
Well, it's just that J.J. Abrams dots his... I love the first Star Trek, 2009. Into Darkness is arguably bad.
Yeah, it depends on the day I watch it. It's what the fuck is this?
And Super 8 is good, but I'm not going to call it great.
Mm-hmm.
And Force Awakens is good, but I'm not going to call it great.
Yeah.
I think we might get a great film out of Rian Johnson here because I think J.J. Abrams is... I hate this distinction, but here it's going to come out of my mouth. J.J. Abrams makes movies.
Yeah.
Ryan Johnson makes films.
Yeah.
So, there you go. I'm a snob.
Go through the names real quick.
Or read at normal speed and speed it up in editing and keep
Could
the
do that too. You could do that too.
And somewhere in there, Chris, you have to throw in something about some whore you fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
Did heroin and weed.
Then Jaws beat Rushmore, and then I fucked this girl, and I had and I snorted cocaine off their boobs, and then L.A. Confidential lost a sideways somehow.
I might have sucked a dick.
Yeah.
I love the James Vanderbeek story about taking that girl back to his room and playing one of his original songs and then segueing into a medley of Counting Crows.